It's kind of like The Fly. You just go into the teleporter and hope that there's no other entity inside the teleporter when you're inside it when you transfer over.
So
yeah, I'd want to be like a street shark-like creature going through the teleporter.
Just
put me in with a shark instead of a fly. Yeah, that's where I would put me in there with a shark and let me come out the other end.
So,
but you got to have Vin Diesel's voice when you come out, though.
Yeah, that's a small price to pay.
Welcome to the Dad Level Podcast, episode 26. This week, I have my dad back in the episode.
Hello, everybody.
And then on the bottom here, my buddy Jose, I went to high school with, junior high, almost elementary. We gamed a lot. We have a lot of shenanigans and stuff we used to do. And we'll get into that topic here. He's going to do a little, introduce who he is, and we'll talk about old times. We're also going to be discussing the Microsoft acquisition of Activision and Blizzard. And then we're going to go into, since not too long ago, it was John Carpenter's birthday. And we want to discuss his movies and the impact it's had on us growing up. So, all right, we'll get into the episode. We hope you guys enjoy. So, we will start.
Silence their phone?
Huh? Who needs to silence
their phone?
Who needs to silence their phone?
Oh, that's not a phone. That's my diabetes monitor, and I have a range that I have to stay in. So whenever it goes do 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 do, it's going up. If it goes do 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 do, it goes down. And if it can't talk to my meter, which I wear, it's one of those that you wear for 10 days. It's like and it's like a Russian submarine or German U-boat sinking and the alarm going off.
Oh,
yeah, you got to watch out for those claxons. They're annoying.
Well, hopefully mine doesn't go off because I'm actually using my phone as the camera itself.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I forgot noises bother David. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go turn it off.
No. It's fine. It's just, I heard it and I was like,
David used to go nuts because my fire smoke alarm would go off every 5 minutes, and he'd be like, "What is that sound?"
And Mark was too.
And what would you ask me? One of y'all asked me, "Do you know how to buy a battery or change?"
That was Mark.
Yeah,
you know how to change a battery.
All that makes me think of, honestly, is that episode of Modern Family when they couldn't find which one in the house was beeping, and the dad, the awkward one, was like, all I hear every time it goes off is "You are not a man," and then immediately went off, and like the whole episode is just a running gag of one of his smoke detectors just going off perpetually in the house, and they were never able to find it. So yeah, no, it's fine.
Oh, you should have been here when the paramedics came in to help me. It was going off, and they were all like, "What is that? What is it?" And I said, "It's one of my smoke alarms." So they go, "We'll work on it. I've got him. We're getting him stabilized. Which one is it?" And they were walking around, and every time they'd go to where they thought it would sound like it was coming from behind them. And then they'd turn and walk, and then they all three split up to go to the three main ones, and it sounded like it was coming from another room. And I was like, "Give it up, guys."
Could you imagine? Could you imagine going to somebody's house to save their life, and then you go on a murder mystery?
You didn't know, but this is a escape house.
And it's not that they're trying to figure out who killed the person. They're going to go murder the alarm that's going off in the house while they're trying to save this person, resuscitate them or whatever.
Well, after the storm, when I had the freeze, remember I had the big electrical problem in the house, and that one that's in the hallway just screamed because I had a big power surge. It burnt out a bunch of things. And I had the built-in wiring that up in the attic and wired throughout the house, and I couldn't get it to turn off. And after 45 minutes of those things going off constantly, I just climbed the ladder, reached up and yanked the whole thing out of the ceiling. And now I got to fix it, but it ain't making that noise anymore. And that's all that mattered.
That's right. Fully understand that. All right. Drag us back out of this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
All right. It's like Ripley setting off the alarm. You have 26 minutes to exit the facility. and she going and
Mother,
ripping
I
that
turned
out.
it off.
Anyway, so Jose, we've been friends for a long time. We have lost contact for a while. So give a little intro about like you getting into gaming and, you know, if you remember how we met as friends and how things have been going in your life.
Yeah, I think we met. I'm not sure if it was the the last year of elementary or intermediate. I believe. I want to say intermediate. That's when we met. You know,
7th grade, I believe.
Yeah, 7th grade. I want to say. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and give out my name. My name is Jose Ursua. I met Vince. I want to say around that 7th grade at that time. And how did I get into gaming? Well, I was into gaming. I was always loved the game. I couldn't afford one at the time, but later on, I eventually got one. I was so hooked into Mario and Super Mario at that time, and the Super Nintendo. It was so much fun. After that, you know, I remember Akbar and some of the friends used to come and knock on the door, and I was like, "Hey, let's go out." I was like, "No, man, I want to stay home and play." That's all I wanted to do is play games because I never had one. You know, so it was really funny to get into that. I recently. Not recently. I actually started to come. I actually returned 3 years ago, to playing games. I just wasn't playing as much, or I wasn't actually streaming at the time. And I think I was like, man, you know, streamers are just out for the money. You know, that's all it is getting money. I'm not gonna do that. I mean, why would I want people to watch me play? I want them to play too. You know, that's just my thought. You know, but anyway, it's like I should have done this a long time ago. Why I didn't do this? You know, it's not only just, you know, it's a hobby. It's just a hobby just to play around. And I started to get into it again. I actually came back to Final Fantasy 14 because I was on and off with that game. I don't know why. It wasn't like 11. Final Fantasy 11 was like also like my favorite MMORPG. It was the main game that made me play all the other Final Fantasies. I haven't played 10 yet, or I'm still into 15, but not all the way yet. But playing that game was just epic, and it was different. It did remind me of Ultima Online because Steven actually got me hooked into that. But I was still into fighting games. Final Fantasy 11 took me away from fighting games, and because of that game, I got into it. I met my other half. That I met her in 2003. I want to say late November. I met her there. And she was from the Dominican Republic, and we ended up being really good friends for a while. Ended up, me and her got together. We ended up separating because there was a lot of insecurities we had. But eventually, we kind of rekindled our friendship again. We kept as friends, and we're rekindling ourselves back in Final Fantasy 14 ever since that, and having fun with it. Honestly, we just take baby steps and living the lives that we want to, and do whatever. And I was going back to the gym. I came down with what's your dad? Oh, he stepped away.
Yeah.
Okay. And actually, I was getting into the gym. I was working out. I came down with severe rheumatoid arthritis. And doctors told me that's your autoimmune system. There's no way you're gonna get repaired. It's like, man, this is gonna be tough. Ended up dropping the games for a while, and just focusing on myself and building. I was going to actually for health. Muscles was just nothing but spoils that came after. And I was like, okay, I like it. It got really addicting. I was so into it. And I was like, I like it. Maybe I get into a competition with that. Then again, it's like my hands are feeling better. I can get, I can start playing fighting games. I was getting into it again, but I was so aggressive. My brother was so good at it. I mean, I think he played Rashid. He was like, man, you know what? I need to get back into video games. I'm rusty. I can't play with Ryu and Ken no more. I feel like I was cheating because I kept bringing my brother with them too. I was like, no, I got to play with someone else, someone that people don't play. And I started playing with Chun-Li and Cammy, and my brother was getting into these games, and he started to stream. And I was like, man, why are you doing this, man? This is just a hobby. I like to do it and talk about. He does podcasts as well. So they talk about comics, they talk about video games, they talk about everything. I mean, in his podcast. One day I probably will share that with y'all one day on his YouTube channel and Twitch. He does a lot of that. And I was like, you know what? I should start doing it too. My brother's doing it. And I see some people who do it and they talk and they're like real people, like super famous people. I mean, they're like celebrities. I'm like, God dang. And I was thinking in the first person in my head, it's like, I wonder if Vince actually streams. I always, me thinking over, it's like, I wonder if he streams. He should. I was looking into it, and I was like, you know what? Let me look into all these streamers, and I try to look into the streamers, but I don't see him on Twitch or anything. And later on, I activated my Facebook like last year. I activated it again. I was like, I really didn't want to use Facebook no more. It was just a lot of drama, so I just kind of stepped away from that. And I was like, I don't want to get into it again. But I just activated just to watch, stuff for video games and video game news and what's coming out. Just basically it. Just got into it again, and I was like, wow, it's just another world. But then again, here comes COVID. Everything changed. And I was like, you know what? I got games. I can come back to the video game world. I got hooked again, and here I am now, just trying to, enjoy myself again, talk about any kind of stuff on video games, and, just about that. This whole topic is MMORPGs, and yeah, I would like to get into fighting games, but it's not the same. I'm going to lose. I know that for sure if I ever get into it again, but yeah. That's about it, But I mean, with Vince, we did a lot of stuff actually with Vince. We used to compete with each other. We used to be like
Rivals.
Rivals. Yes, rivals. I would say frenemies because that's all we did. We were rivals. Vince was always on Tekken. Tekken, he was his thing. I was good on Tekken, but it got to the point that after 3, I started to feel like Tekken was like leaving its roots, and Street Fighter, after Street Fighter Third Strike, I started to feel like Street Fighter 4. I was like, I don't like 3D much. I can't. I mean, I'm trying into it, but it was just leaving its roots, and playing with these guys, with Vince and all that. I remember we used to do this. What was that tournament? We used to do at Edgebrook Apartments.
Yeah, we did quite a few tournaments.
Yeah,
we ran.
We ran, and we were just having fun. We did this tournament. Everyone from the high school gave in $5. They came in. We had Steven and his family made it like these sloppy joes and potato chips and whatnot. We were just having Sprite and all that. We had fun. Everyone came, and we got into the tournament and fought some really good players. I mean, I fought somebody that I got beaten down by someone in Street Fighter Alpha. I was like, man, I can't believe it. And I got into Tekken and tried to get into that. I lost to someone better than me. I was like, God damn, there's actually good competition. Why can't they make these games online? Eventually, someone did.
Yeah.
Probably with someone, doing that. Here it comes again. My phone just coming down. But it was fun. True.
So let's transition into my dad. Welcome back.
Good to be back, Howard. Half the people on here aren't going to get that.
Some will. But so yeah, go ahead, Dad. Just tell us what you've been doing, and how your experience with everything that happened. We'll go into that for a little bit.
It's amazing how quickly we don't realize how bad things can get. I thought I was sick. I had a little bit of an infection, and within 4 days, it literally killed me. And it was a tough fight back. You were there for part of it. I had to go through home rehab. I still have a home nurse that comes and helps me. I still have physical therapy that I go through. But it really kind of refocused some things for me. I got back to writing, trying to work on some of the books that we had started that just kind of went to the wayside. They wanted me to start working on things to get some of the agility and mobility back into my hands and stuff. So I started working on building models again and because I love playing video games, and with my hands so messed up, and Vince knows I have a finger that points around corners. It's really hard to do a controller when your finger's like hitting the wrong button. And so they said you need to start working on things that'll help build that stuff up again. So I started doing some more fine detailed work, and I found that I could do things again and bring back that creative side to me. Learning how to work with acrylics and build dioramas and things like that I'm really, really enjoying. Expensive hobby. I thought games were expensive. Try buying acrylic. man, and epoxy. That stuff is expensive. But when you're done with it, it's gorgeous. It's very beautiful. And I understand how people will do this and sell it. Every time I build something, I'm like, oh, I can't sell that. That needs to go up on my shelf. And so I've got to get rid of that mentality again. That, oh, you know, I want to do some of this to try to have something else, you know, in my life. It was funny when I had a friend of mine who goes like, yeah, I heard you died. And I was like, yeah, I was dead on the table. And he was like, what was it like for you? Did you see the light? Did you see your family? You know, did you hear voices and all that stuff? And I told him, no. I said, have you ever seen the movie Christmas Story, where the kid is like on the slide and he's like, I want the BB gun, and Santa just kicks him in the face and says, you'll shoot your eye out, kid, and sends him back down. That's kind of what it was. It was like, I felt at peace, but I kept hearing and sensing something saying, you're not done. It's not your time. You got to go back. And I'm like, no, you know, and then I slid down and ended up back here, which makes me every day, I guess, is a bonus round for me. I'm happy, you know.
Extra stages, Dad.
Extra stages. I just need to get that bonus life. You still owe me a robot body.
Yeah, I know I do.
That.
Well, it's, you know, this is a chance for you to be able to get all those like side quest armor upgrades and special items.
Yeah,
you never know.
And you know how I play. When I play a video game, it was like I wanted everything because I'd never want to go back through and play it again. I just want to find everything possible at that moment, and so that's what I'm going to do now.
What you'll end up doing, Dad, is you're going to find the Fountain of Youth and become Master Roshi somewhere on an island
with a turtle.
With a turtle.
With a turtle.
Yeah.
As long as I have what was her name taking care of me?
Launch.
Yeah, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah, I would like that too.
That's what you need. A schizophrenic lady who
sneezes.
Every time she sneezes.
Well, she's going to have to be to keep up with me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
That's awesome.
So how has everybody been doing? David?
Yeah, man. Just, you know, SSDD, to quote we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, just plugging along. It nothing really all that interesting, right? Just doing dad stuff, squeezing in a little bit of games here and there, watching shows. Started Yellowstone because everybody that I work with keeps telling me about it. So finally started watching them. 3 episodes in. It's pretty good so far. Been enjoying it.
I tried.
You tried?
I tried. I just couldn't. And I love Westerns, and basically it's a modern Western, but you know, it's most of the stuff we're seeing, it's been there, done that, you know. There's been so many shows like it. I'm looking forward to the one which is like the prequel where it shows the origin of the family. It's got like Sam Elliott and all them in it. I might think I'll probably enjoy that one more.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that one actually came out this past December. It's like 1898 or something like that, whatever it's called. But
yeah,
I'm not at that point yet. I at least need to watch this first season through and see how it does for me. But I mean, so far there's nothing about it that irritates me. So that's always.
And that says a lot for you because you were like the master of like going, okay, that.
I can get very nitpicky about stuff. Yes, very much so.
I found with you, it's easier to go, so what did you like about it instead of letting the other.
I mean, it just depends on what it is, right? It's like if it's something that I have some kind of history with, or I know a little bit of history with, or I mean, it's like anything else, right? It's the problem with going into something with expectations, right? You walk into something with any kind of expectations and it doesn't quite meet up to it, or I mean, I don't even know if it was I assume, you know, what we're talking about is me kind of dumping on that first episode of Boba Fett, and it was just like it's whenever I watch, and I try not to do this. I really, really try not to. But as I'm watching it, in the back of my head, I'm piecing together how there's, I'm thinking of the narrative. I'm thinking of what they're going for, right, with what they're telling. And then as stuff happens, I'm like, but that setup doesn't make sense, or that doesn't feel right, right? Like the first season of Mandalorian, whenever he first leaves the planet, that very next episode, he gets, Baby Yoda almost gets murdered by a hitman, and the hitman has that little tracker. And then it goes to another episode of, random stuff happening in space, which is fine. Random shenanigans in space is great. Cowboy Bebop's fantastic anime. But it would have made more sense to me if that episode is what encouraged him to go back to the planet to stop them from hunting Yoda, because there was nothing really that triggered him wanting to go back. It's little things like that just sometimes in stories it's like a grain, right, that just gets caught in your teeth, and you can just feel it there. And even though whatever you're eating might taste good or whatever, there's still that grit or that gristle, right, that you just can't work out of your teeth. And you get to the end of it and you're like, yeah, it was fine. I don't know why they did it that way.
Well, part of it is because a lot of us like to see ourselves in the hero character, or see us, or recognize ourselves as somebody in whatever we're reading or watching. That way we can associate with the story. Sure. I didn't have a problem with Mandalorian because I knew, for one, he was on a quest, and sometimes quest, like in video games, leads you back to where you were before, and you go through and see something you might have missed. He was hurting for money. He was trying to get the Bosca, or whatever it's called, the medal.
Yeah, and I mean, again, all that, completely understand. It was just, and again, it was just a nitpicky little thing, because it was in the back of my mind. I was like, if you know that they have a tracker on the baby that can apparently track them through, I guess, hyperspace.
It's
right?
Hyperspace, yeah.
Because he left. So it's like, if they have a hyperspace tracker, and they have a hyperspace tracker, then that they're always just one step from being able to find you. So it's like, if and that's where, if they had reversed it, right? If the episode where the guy almost transmitted back that he had found baby, the one with Bill Burr in it, right? He killed the guy before he was able to if you put that as the first episode, okay, Mando is aware, I need to be able to protect the baby. And then you move along, and it's when he realizes, I am literally never going to be able to outrun these guys, and they're literally just a day behind me perpetually for the rest of this time. I need to go back and shut these guys down. Again, it's nitpicky nonsense, but it was
I get you, because I did the same thing with Star Wars. When I first saw Star Wars, I watched it 22 times that first summer that it came out. Yeah, I lived at the theater. And I can remember going, if they knew that the tracker was on the Millennium Falcon, why not use that to set up a trap for them? Don't lead them to your base. Lead them to another place, because they're following the signal coming off of the Falcon. And then you have your ships there amassing, so when they get there, you attack them when they least expect it. But sometimes storytelling has to be done a certain way.
Yeah, and that's why I try not. It's like, when we were talking about the Boba Fett thing, it was that first episode just didn't gel with me very well, and it's what happens, right? Every show I try to give it at least 3 or so episodes to see, okay, if there's not a concept here that's either fresh enough or interesting enough to hold my attention, is there a character that I like enough that I'm willing to stick around and see what happens to them? Or, it's like any form of entertainment, right? Like, you were talking earlier about Final Fantasy 11. I sat down and tried to play Final Fantasy 11 when I got into that. The problem was my parents would cut off my internet at like 8 o'clock at night. And around that time was when everybody that I knew would pile in. So my experience with Final Fantasy 11 was getting online as this little low-level dragoon, right? Going around, I would kill some bunny rabbits, and I would level up, and I got to, level 5, I think, is whenever you would cap out, and that's when you started to have it get to parties. And so then I would log on, and I would set up a little thing. Hey, I'm this low-level little grunt thing that does like garbage DPS, but I need to level up so I can do better stuff. I need a party, and I would like do that and then sit there for an hour plus and nothing would ever come of it because none of my friends were online because they were off doing other things and all that good stuff. So I wound up just quitting on that because it just wasn't a very good experience for me. But I mean, it's just right. It's what you're going into, and it's yeah. You can get the different stuff out of anything depending on your mindset of it. And that's why I try to make sure it's like, okay, I'm really going to give this the college try, see if there's something in this that can hook me in. And if it's good enough to hook me in, I love tons of 80s movies and garbage. I am currently making my way through a bunch of
Turbo
old.
Kid.
No, I love Turbo Kid. Turbo Kid's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with
Everything
Turbo Kid. He turned me on to that, and that was great.
You're welcome, by the way. But no, like right now I'm making my way through a bunch of old 70s Spanish language horror films, which I just watched one the other day. It was called Revenge of the Zombie or something like that. It was dealing with voodoo, but the entire time, and whenever the horror would start, instead of it being this dread, filled ambiotic music, it was disco. It was the weirdest experience of a movie. It was like the second the disco would kick in and my wife would walk in the room, she's like, "What the hell are you watching?" I was like, "Babe, get ready. The zombies are coming." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Just wait. And then the door would bust in and there'd be some lady with really awful makeup staring. And it was funny as hell and it was enjoyable. It was just, that's just what I got to find. So right now I'm fine with Boba Fett for the most part. It's just, yeah, there's just a little, every once in a while, again, there's just little things that I go in and find as I'm going through it that just kind of, I don't know, stick with me. It's fun.
Nick picks things that you don't like. Some things that things you don't like. Yeah.
And
sometimes things grate on you.
As long as whenever I weigh those two things and my nitpicks don't outweigh the things that I found that I enjoyed, then it's fine, right? That's entertainment because nothing's going to be 100% the way that you want it. There's always going to be something in the back of your mind that you're like, I could have done this better, but you didn't make it. So too bad.
Yeah, I'm like that. Like if I go in to see something or I'm going to go watch something, the first thing I try to do is push everything out. And I watch it to see how long I stay in the movie. And okay, now they made something that's kicked me out. I wasn't able to suspend my imagination or disbelief. Okay, I'm gonna go back into the movie. Suck me back in. That's what I want you to do. That's what I paid money for. And then now you kicked me out again. Oh, wait a minute, you kicked me out while I'm still thinking about the last thing you kicked me out. Oh, fuck this movie. And I saw Troy. I saw Troy. I sat through and muscled through that movie, and I love the whole the whole thing about Troy. When they took a 10-year war and turned it into like 10 days, and all the crud that happened in it. When I walked out, my daughter who worked at the theater opens the door. She goes, "How was it, Dad?" I said, "It sucked. Don't go see Troy." And I had this meltdown right there, and people are buying tickets. And she's like, Dad, stop. You're gonna get me in trouble. I said, "Read a book. Read the book. Go pick up the Odyssey," But
go find this ancient tome by a dude who's named after the guy from The Simpsons.
Homer.
Homer. Good luck.
But were you with me when I had the meltdown during The Mist?
I know I
don't
was.
think you went.
We both walked out. We both walked out of that movie.
Because I was sitting there and I was like, and I knew where they were going. And I said, if they do this, I'm going to be pissed. They did it. And I stood up, and what amazed me was Josh was sitting next to me, and he did it at the same time I did. We stood up and effed. I said, "F this movie," and started flipping off. I said, "Excuse me." People are like, "Excuse you." I know, I'm getting out of here. I'm gonna go try to get my money back from this piece of junk. And I'm fussing and bitching all the way out of the theater, and I open the door, and there's just people lined up to go in and see this movie. And I just rant and rave, and they're like, "Okay, you need to go over here and sit down and calm down." And people were like looking at me, and then I was like, "Yeah, let's see how many other people come out of the theater who liked it." And almost everybody who came out had the exact same. If you had read the book, the short story, and knew the story, you had the exact same reaction I had. But if you were never exposed to the original source, then they were just, oh, that was a really good movie. No, the guy freaking killed his kid, killed everybody, and it was for nothing. And then the same way with in the remake of Amityville Horror, when they killed the dog, I turned to Amber. She goes like, "Are you enjoying it?" I was like, "It's okay. I like Ryan Reynolds, but I like the original better." And I said, "But I think they're going to kill the dog." And the dog did not die. The dog is who saved him. They killed the dog. I'm out of here. And man, with the axe, I went, I'm out of here. And I don't have a problem telling the screen off as I leave, because it costs too much money to go see a movie nowadays.
Well, I'm going to add this real quick, and then we'll get over to Adrian. But just a callback, and it's funny because The Mist, when my dad read that book to us, the short story, and it's like, it ends on an open ending. They're traveling through the world as the Mist has already covered everything. They're just finding these pockets of places they could go to get gas and food, and they happen to hear possibly a broadcast from a radio station of like hope. So they decide to head that direction. It ends. It's like the perfect John Carpenter ending, which we're going to talk about here in a little while. It is the perfect John Carpenter ending. So then we went and saw the movie, everything is perfect. It's like almost to the T on the book, except for the fact, the father doesn't really have sex with the lady he meets at the supermarket, which David has had an argument about this. He didn't like that whole thing.
It was so weird and out of place, but Stephen King was high on cocaine, so it's fine.
Well, but I also, the whole point of it built up to that moment when they get to the house, and it's like less than 10 feet away. He knows he can't get to the driveway, so he has to get out and try to go and see if his wife is alive. And then he's looking in his mind for reasons not to get out, and he's like, well, maybe she got into the cellar, but then no, they got in and they probably ripped open the cellar. Well, maybe she did this. And every time he comes up with a piece of hope for himself, his own subconscious says, no, there's no down.
Yeah.
And then when he sees the window broken, the big plate glass window of his house, he realizes she's gone, but he doesn't know. So he backs the vehicle up and turns around and they leave. And it's not until the end, when he's looking in his son's eyes, that he regains his hope. And when they hear on the radio, because he got to the point where the character did in the movie at a different point in the movie, and he was able to push it out and survive and push on, if for nothing else, for his son. And that guy couldn't do it. And I would, it goes to that thing, like, if you were that last bullet, save that last bullet for you. The cowboy always gave the woman a gun with had one bullet left. You don't want the Indians to get you. You don't, here's the poison. Let's take the poison so they don't get us. Man, I'm going to go out fighting. But if I had my kid with me, how would I react to that? And I hope that I would find a way to keep us alive, But that was a really gut punch for me, because I'm a father and I have kids. And that is something that, every time your kid goes out and doesn't come home on time and you can't find them, all those bad scenarios run through you. But you always, as a parent, find hope and keep fighting for that hope. And that's what failed to happen. And then to see that bus come by with that smug lady with her kids waving at him, like, oh, look what you did. You should have come with me when I wanted. That was just like slapping in.
Yeah, because you end up like, you're totally making the movie about a different message instead of what the book was originally written for, or the message of. No matter how bad the odds are for you, as long as you have hope, you can continue to move forward. And I was going to go somewhere here with this, and it totally slipped my mind. But it's just, this was one of those things. I don't know. I
like The Cell.
Cell was great.
The Cell. And I love The Cell all the way to the ending of the book, and then he doesn't tell you whether he's able to save his son or not.
And it's another John Carpenter ending. It's like Nada sitting at the top of the roof, like, shooting the antenna that's broadcasting the illusion on everybody for the aliens. And it's like, he flips off the helicopter because he did it, but it's like, you don't know what's going to happen after this. It's like Childs and McCready sitting at the end of the thing. You don't know whether either one of them are the creature, which we actually know they're not either way. People like to speculate on it, but there's signs there. You just got to pay attention.
I mean, technically, if you follow the comics, that's not true. The video game, one of them was, I think it was McCready. So there's
No,
the
in
video
both
game-
the comic and
Yeah,
the
both
thing,
the com-
McCready's the human. It was all it's Childs who ends up.
because
Childs dies in the video game,
well, Childs,
but in the comic, he becomes in the third or
and the third book, but he
suit-
survives.
third book.
He survives the first two books because he's like, they both go off looking for that Russian submarine and they get on board, and then it's because of the fish, something they grab outside that causes them to have problems inside the boat.
Yeah.
But
They did the one thing you don't do with a story like that, and the same thing that they're messing up with the Aliens TV series. When you have something that all it takes is like one piece of it to get out, you don't want it to go into a populated place. So what does he do? They do in the Thing comics, they take it to a tropical island where there's no ice and there's water and birds everywhere. Okay. And so the minute that happened and it got into the birds and the fish, it would have been over.
yeah,
And just like in the Alien, all of that takes place on Earth. And unless it's an alien in thought only, and there are no xenomorphs, because now that's what it's looking like. It's going to be enhanced humans, robots, and all this other stuff kind of fighting each other, and corporation using it. So, well, then make it Blade Runner. Don't make it aliens. But if you bring a xenomorph to Earth, it's over. Let it
And
get
all it
into
takes
a populated
all it takes is
population
one.
center, and it's it. It's gone.
yeah.
Ain't no
Because
bringing it back.
the first one's going to go create a queen egg, and then the queen egg is going to take over somebody, and then bam, production of
Well, if you go back to the book, he can make multiple eggs
yeah, sure, yeah,
because, like with insects, they make multiple queens, and the one who hatches first usually kills the others and becomes the dominant queen.
Mhm.
But it's established in some of the novels in the comic, you can have two queens that fight, and if there's a stalemate, they both go off and create their own hive, and then they're at war with each other.
yeah,
That's
and
the
then
last
also,
thing you want.
yeah, and then on top of that, the different species too that they make
Yes. Yeah.
stuff. So you'd have like, dog aliens, cat aliens, and stuff like hybrids of all that, whatever. But
I just want to see how you get a praying mantis alien. Come on, give me a break.
All right.
Very tiny face hugger.
it's like fried scorpion, but fried alien face hugger. Anyway, Adrian, how you been, sir?
I think he's still mute.
You're muted.
Yeah, you can see it's saying muted.
Okay.
There
Yeah.
we go.
There
we
he
go.
is.
Yeah, I've been all right. Just a lot of working, a lot of family stuff. Pretty busy at the job. A lot of Halo. That's about it. Nothing exciting to report since the last time I was on the podcast. Once you start getting towards that 40, it's like, yeah, man, there's no milestones to report after that, and then
Yeah, you want to stay 40. You don't want to go past that.
Well, I'm okay
40.
with going past that.
40.
Yeah.
What a youngin'.
I know. I know.
So I'm like, yeah, I've been waiting my whole life to be this age, man. It feels good. But
I definitely
nothing's
wouldn't want to
inside.
go back and have to relearn my lessons. Somebody goes, wouldn't you
Yeah.
like to be able to go and start it over? Not if I can't take the knowledge I've learned up to this point with me, because there ain't no point
Yeah.
in it. But
Yeah,
I've been waiting to talk to you.
Mhm.
I don't want to talk to you about Cowboy Bebop, but I'll let you finish.
Cowboy Bebop. That's all right. So yeah, I mean, speaking of that, yeah, I'd be down for one of those robot bodies. I don't know about going back in time and relearning, but yeah, hook me up with a robot body, something like that.
Yeah,
one
it
of
goes
those
to the
body
show, man, I'm
transplants
telling
or
you.
something.
Telling
Yeah,
you,
I'd be
goes to the
down for
show.
that.
Since he was little, anytime I got sick or had to have an operation, he would come in, he'd hold my hand and go, Dad, when I get older, I'm going to go through college and I'm going to learn robotics. I'm going to build you a body, and it's going to be the best body. And so I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
that
I
old.
mean, put me on the list, man.
It's that ultimate dream as a kid. You have like the world is your oyster. You can do whatever you
Yeah.
want, and like I would sit there and draw schematics of robotics and all this stuff.
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, this would work. This will, and it all stems from like Japanese animation or the Terminator. And it's like, yeah, I think this could be done. And,
Yeah.
life goes, no, you're not. You're gonna be a guy that works at a food distribution company and IT because
Yeah, the best that would happen is you'd lay the foundation for somebody 100 years from now to
Now to
actually
do it.
do it.
Actually, yeah.
That's how that would work out.
So,
But, you know,
so I don't know why I just randomly thought of this, but thinking about bodies, I think there's a story that has probably one of the weirdest, like body. I guess it's body swapping. I'm trying to remember the exact nature of it. I think it was Kurt Vonnegut wrote. It was a short story, and basically it was these people discovered a way where they could basically throw their spirits out of their body. And the way the book describes it was basically that you just start walking one way, and then in your mind you tell yourself to walk another way, and then somehow you're able to tell your body to go the other way, and that's what causes this separation. And so the people would literally just jump into whatever bodies they felt like that were empty to be able to hop in and utilize that. It's one of the weirder notions
I remember which story that is.
that I've ever read about, that kind of idea, right? Not robot bodies; they were biological bodies.
Bodies, yeah, they're just switching.
That
They
sounds
actually
like
grew them, right? They
Like
grew like
Avatar?
physical bodies
Yeah.
and all that stuff, and they would just hop in and out. And it was just, I'll never forget that short story. It's such an odd one, but just because of the way they described it, it was like, yeah, if you just start walking this way, and then you tell yourself, okay, now I'm gonna walk that way. Yeah, your spirit will just come straight out of your body. Okay, I mean,
Oh, that's just like what was it, Crichton in what was the one with where they fax people to the past?
Yeah.
Timeline, was it?
Yeah. Timeline.
Yeah.
facts into the past. It's pretty
I
bad.
was like, okay, I still didn't get the idea that, it wasn't like they were faxing you into another body or something else. They just,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, if we can fax an image, why can't we fax a person? I said, well, then isn't that teleportation?
Technically, you're making a copy of yourself and destroying it. So, and I made this joke before. It's kind of like McCoy with his problem with teleporters in Star Trek.
Hmm.
He was always afraid of getting into him and his body being destroyed and it not being him when he comes through, or not coming through at all.
Well, it's because his argument was a religious one. What happens to the soul? And so he was like, to be teleported, you have to be broken down and destroyed and reintegrated. And unless, if the soul is something that can be detached from the human body, which is what people believe when we die, your soul goes on, then what happens to it? How do they funnel it into wherever your other body is? But one thing I liked about the transporter was like it always kept a record of you. And as long as they had a record of you, they could, like, if you got a disease later in life, they could run you to the transporter and re-imprint you
factory reset
before,
Yeah.
this factory reset. I was like, wow, that's pretty good.
Hmm.
It's kind of like The Fly. You just go into the teleporter and hope that there's no other entity inside the teleporter when you're inside it when you transfer over.
So
Yeah, I'd want to
Not
be
to-
like a
not to
street
say-
shark-like creature going through the
There
teleporter.
you
Just
go.
put me in there with a shark instead of a fly. Yeah, that's where I would put me in there with a shark and let me come out the other end.
so
But you got to have Vin Diesel's voice when you come out, though.
Yeah, that's a small price to pay.
So not to go down another rabbit hole with it, but another one when it comes to you talking about that with timeline and faxing people. Again, another great short story, but for the life of me, I can't remember who wrote it or the title of it. I'll never forget the concept of it. Basically, the idea was mankind had gone to the moon and we had found this ancient alien structure that was there. But anytime somebody went into it, it was like this weird alien obstacle course that would kill you, right? And the way that they started going to the moon is they would essentially teleport you there. But the way that it worked is they would put you in a sensory deprivation tank, and there was pretty much a matter assemblator on the moon. And so they would take a copy of you and it would cast, again, your spirit up onto the moon into that matter assemblator, and you would become you up there, and
Sounds
they would
like-
run these people through this gauntlet of this alien structure, and they would die. And whenever they would die, their soul would come back to the version of them that was Earth. So they would have these memories of, okay, this is what I did to get this far, but they would also remember that they died.
Yeah.
And so it would slowly drive each of the people that were doing it crazy, because they were just dying over and over and over in horrible ways, right? It wasn't just like, passing away and then waking up, right? It was, you violently died, and then you were in your body, and then you went back to do it again. And there was like a weird love triangle portion to it that mainly focused on this daredevil that they got into it, who eventually worked his way through the maze, and there were some other shenanigans that happened. But that concept of, you just put yourself in a sensory deprivation tank, throw your soul out to, this thing, and then have to repeatedly die over and over.
The Sixth Day.
Which
I
got,
find a weird
Six
short
Day
story.
borrowed from it, but you know who
Oh,
else
wow.
did? I mean, they borrowed, or whoever wrote that had to have borrowed from Barsoom and Edgar Rice Bros. Because remember, John Carter died and his body was in the cave.
Yeah.
And then he went up there, and then back and forth, he could switch back and forth from his body. Now, in the movie, they made it like he would disappear, but that's not what happened in the books. He had a body on Mars and he had a body here. And so when he disappeared the first time back to Earth, he was catatonic, his body. So they had him enshrined, and then all of a sudden he wakes up when he comes back. That's been used in multiple stories. That kind of, there's a book that I've always loved called The Micronauts. And in it, one of the concepts is that because of the world, resources in the world are being depleted, there's wars for resources, starving, wars are happening because of water and everything else. And they find a way to clone a person, but they're micronized, right? Their main large body gets stored in these like tanks, and then they transfer your consciousness into your small body, and then they send you out into what is called the garden. And it was just this big garden, but for everybody there who was living in the garden, there was lots of food, plenty of land. A drop of water was like an ocean, and all this other stuff. But then they had to deal with scorpions, spiders, moths, and all the different insects and all the things that happen at that level. And one of the wars, the terrorist group breaks in and burns the facility down that stores their bodies.
Wow.
So they're stuck as they call themselves Micronauts, but they're these micronized people and living in this just giant world. But every now and then the book will pan out to tell you what's going on in the world. And it's really this tiny little garden. And I was always amazed by it. There was actually 3 books in the series.
It's funny how there's a lot of movies kind of talks about almost a similarity.
Mhm.
Final Fantasy 14 is just like almost like John Carter Mars and all these other, like your soul, your whole thing goes into these other bodies. Ashians, I don't know if you know about that, Vince, about 14.
Mhm.
Ashians are the same way. Here comes this world what we are in. There's other shards that copy the main sources, and how you travel through the warrior light travels through these other worlds, but he can travel, but his other counterpart's soul separates, and their bodies, like John Carter Mars, where their bodies are sleeping in the main planet, the source, and they had to end up in this other world, which is a copy of the source, where their souls are there, but they're not really, their main bodies is basically sleep. It's funny how all this stuff is like so similar. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's any other movies that are like that, or something like that.
Robotech has, or Macross has the whole Zentradi, where they have the ability to have basically organic copies of themselves, either as micro human size, or their full Zentradi size, where they're like freaking size of like 20-story buildings. So, and then on top of that, you find out in the Macross side of things that the Zentradi were actually human descendants in a way, and that they evolved a certain way, and they made their bodies this way so they could become warlike. and conquer space throughout the universe.
That's interesting because that sounds like kind of like an ascending way in a way,
Mhm.
something like that. What is another show that does that? Is it Stargate when they're talking about the Atlanteans ascended?
Oh yeah, they have the whole thing where they was it
I know Final Fantasy 11, the Zillart race ascended into like this spiritual form, and they
right, yeah.
future.
I don't know what they're called. I can't, it's been a while. Since I've
Stargate
watched
does that too.
yeah, Stargate has the whole thing, but like the whole changing body sizes. What was it? The movie with Matt Damon just that came out not too long ago.
Downsizing, I think.
Yeah,
that's what it's
downsizing.
called.
And then like even it's funny too, go on a video game level, like Jose was talking about Earthbound. You know, in Earthbound, you have to go back to the past, and they play up on the whole thing that you can't travel beyond your birth. So what they have to do is they basically make robot bodies, and they put their souls in the bodies, and they go to the past to go fight Gigas. And so there's some things in that. I don't want to say anything because Earthbound's a really good game. A lot of people need to play it. There is ways to play it. You don't actually have to have the physical copy. I would suggest if you have a Wii U or even like the Switch, I think it's on the virtual console.
Yeah,
So-
My brother has Switch. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Earthbound's a great game. It's hilarious. It's just it's definitely an RPG that needs to be played.
I'll try it out. I might have to ask my brother for.
And then Adrian shaking his head. What do you want to add there?
Original copy or nothing at all. Vince.
Thank you.
How
We were
dare
having
you.
this conversation today.
Yes.
How dare
Well,
you, sir.
we're okay, and that's going to go into this topic that we're going to talk about here in a moment. So I'll let you guys let y'all have a little round real quick, and then we'll go into the meat of this episode.
You're gonna give us another chance to go down a rabbit hole again?
Oh, I got a rabbit
wait.
hole for you. The best, one of the coolest time. Was it time? Okay, let me think. Okay, I got a couple. So the time travel one, a cool time travel premise was from that terrible last Terminator movie. And the movie wasn't good, but they had a really good premise for time travel, which was you're not even traveling back in time. You're just going to an alternate reality in that time. So that's why you can never change the past because you're not changing the past. You're not going to change the future by changing the past because you're not in the same
because the
universe
minute
that you were in or something like that.
Grandfather
because the
Claude.
minute you go back, you are creating an alternative timeline.
That's it. That's
and
it.
You can change the future, but
Yeah.
you can't change the future or the past of that one timeline.
From the time it came from.
You know,
That was
one
really
of
cool.
my
I thought that was cool.
favorite stories is The Sound of Thunder, which is about where they take people back to hunt for dinosaurs, and then even the smallest change can affect the future. But even that, and when they did the movie, they got caught up in that whole idea of a time wave that comes through, because once you've changed something in the past, it doesn't automatically change the future you're going to. Like in the book, that's what happened. They survived it, got to the future, and it was totally different. In the movie, they made it where like it came in waves. And there was a movie called Millennium that really explored that, where the people there's only about 50,000 people left in the future. The Earth was destroyed, and they were trying to go back and change the past to fix the events.
Yeah.
But there was a subgroup who were going back and trying to save as many humans that would have died in the past and bring them forward. So there was a population who could keep doing this, and hopefully they'd fix everything. And then when I watched, what was the one that was on Amazon with the aliens?
Tomorrow War?
Tomorrow
With Chris
War?
Pratt?
Yeah, with Chris Pratt.
Tomorrow.
And I was like, wow, that has that same kind of thing going on there. That go back to get people just to keep them fighting long enough to try to stop the future from happening. And I was like, this goes back to Jose, is that there's nothing new under the sun. Everything has been written, everything has been talked about, everything has been done. It's how you take that and change it and make something unique out of it. to tell the same story, but try to find a different way of
Different way
telling
of telling
or
it, yeah.
exploring it.
Like my
Mhm.
Terminator story.
One of my favorite versions of that is the Dragon Riders of Pern, right? Dragon Riders of Pern is the same way. Not to spoil a decades old book, but one of the mystery in the very beginning of the book is there's this celestial body, right? It's a meteor or comet. It was a comet that passes by this planet every X number of years, and when it does, there are these worms that come off of it and burrow down into the earth and like destroy all the stuff on the planet. So the people that were there actually genetically modified and created dragons that they were able to, that are also telepathic and can teleport, because that's awesome. Just go find Dragon Riders of Pern. It's about telepathic, teleporting, time traveling dragons. And they can teleport around the planet to burn these worms as they fall out of the sky. Well, the very beginning of the first book that was written, there's this mystery because a whole bunch of the Dragon Riders just disappeared at one point in history. And what you find out is that one of the characters in that current series, she is she's a queen and one of the first ones in like generations. And whenever she sees something, she thinks of it at the time that she remembered it. And whenever she does that and feeds that vision to her dragon to teleport to that point, she actually finds out that she's not just teleporting to that point at that time, but she's teleporting to it where her memory was at. And so she's able to use that and use like history books as a guidepost to take her back through time to gather up all the Dragon Riders, because there was too few to protect them from the comet, to pull them into the future to help them save the future and all that. It was just, again, I just like saying telepathic time traveling
Dragons, yeah.
I'm glad you could say it because I can't say it.
Telepathic
And one of them
time
was, yeah, go ahead, Adrian. Say it.
travel. Nah,
I was gonna say
telephone.
Trogdor. One of them was that. He's a Terminator. Just to wrap that part up real quick. Time travel. You can either do the whole thing.
Let him finish because
Oh,
Adrian.
Hmm?
I didn't let
a couple
you
more.
finish
You
your
had a couple
story.
more.
Go
Yeah,
on.
you
You
said
had a
you had
couple more
one.
time travel.
Oh, well, it wasn't time travel. It was another good story. Oh, it was kind of time travel. It's Terminator. Terminator is time travel and robots taking over. And there's the game. It's the PS4 game with the robot dinosaurs. It's Zero Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
And has everybody played that game or no?
Yeah.
Anybody intends to play that game? Okay, the story is great because it is essentially the same, robot apocalypse. They made these sentient robots, and you're made to think that you're going to all these places because there's a super weapon. And well, in the past, they have the audio logs. The audio logs suggest that, okay, we figured out how to beat these robots. We got this we got these things together. We need everybody to come together. We're gonna deploy this super weapon to kill the robots. So they bring out all these scientists and stuff in there, and you get there, and they're like, just kidding, man. We don't have a plan. We're fucked. All we're gonna do, all we're gonna do is sterilize everybody that's here. We're gonna put all this DNA into pods. We're gonna wait the robots out, and then we're gonna repopulate the Earth after all the robots are dead.
God, that is
I thought that was great because they were like, "Hey man, we can't do," because they had made the robots like feed on organic matter, so they were just tearing up the soil, the grass, all the animals, and they were just eating them up. And so they were like, "Hey, we have to wait for these robots to eat everything up, die off, and then we'll have other robots like do all this in vitro and stuff and bring back humanity and reintroduce humanity into the wild." But of course something goes wrong, and we end up kind of restarting history again because these other robots were supposed to re-educate us on modern times, but they broke down. So they just set all these people off, and we just kind of started over tribalism again.
Yeah.
But I like that story because it builds up so much. And then the big reveal is, "Hey man, we didn't have a plan. We're fucked. These robots are going to win."
And we were just joking. Y'all believed us with that?
That's it.
It's the movie Don't Look Up. Yeah.
Well,
it's just like,
got to wait them out.
What is it called?
That's similar to Nine. Did any of y'all ever watch the movie Nine?
Oh yeah, the animated movie, the one with the sock robots. there's
And
like
it's it was kind of steampunkish, but in a science fiction kind of way.
Yeah.
Basically, a scientist creates all this technology turns on us and wipes out humanity, and then he, just before he dies, creates the seeds that will rebuild the earth. But they wake up and they don't know what they're for. So it's their adventure of discovery to figure out why and what their purpose is. And in the end, their purpose is to die so that they can
they have to
restart.
sacrifice their 9
They have to,
souls to
they have to sacrifice themselves to bring
Yeah.
all life back.
So Jose, the movie Don't Look Up on Netflix. It's kind of
yeah, I see
Yeah.
it. I see it right now. I'm
Yeah,
looking
okay.
it up at 9. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the other thing, back to Adrian's first Terminator thing, is the fact that like Dragon Ball Z has that time travel. You can't change your past, but I mean you can't
Yeah.
change your future, but you
future.
can change the past of an alternate timeline.
Yeah.
Unless
Well,
you're
okay.
unless you're Zamasu, who can,
Yeah. I liked the whatever they did with time travel in Dragon Ball Z. It was Dragon Ball Super that kind of
with
rubbed me the wrong way. Where they were
the time travel
going-
rings.
going back and forth like 6 times, getting whooped by Zamasu six different times to get whooped, and let's try it again. They get whooped and they go back. Let's try it again. They get whooped and they go back. And I'm like, oh man, I can't handle this anymore.
Yeah.
But all right, so we ready to move on to the meat of the topic, the number one of the meat of this episode. All right, so as y'all know, we're recording this on Tuesday when all this news broke out, but Microsoft acquired Activision and Blizzard for $70 billion. And there's been a lot of videos about this, of how this is going to change and impact the gaming industry going forward. We've actually talked about in our Discord about different variety of things of like, would this change the impact of the conditions that the people at Blizzard and Activision deal with when they're developing games? And what's Microsoft's end goal, of bringing Skynet online? Anyway,
World domination.
Well, let me ask you a question. Effectively, Blizzard was over. They were bankrupt. They were going out of business, right? So by the acquisition, Blizzard gets another chance at life, and all
because
they were having
a lot of problems with just last couple of a couple months.
Yeah, they locked out all their employees, shut the buildings down, and stopped all development. If that's not going out of business, I don't know what is.
I don't know if they were going out of business, but I know they were like going through some sexual harassment scandal with women.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird stuff.
There was a lot of drama. There was a lot of bad, especially with the CEO, Bobby Kotick or something like that. And I feel like he's still going to be in there, even though they purchased, the company itself. I feel like that's bad business to have a guy like him there, because that's not a pretty face that you want, especially someone who's abused women. That to me is just like, no, I'm not gonna. I never played too much Blizzard games. I played World of Warcraft maybe for a couple of years. I wasn't into it. I have played what was the other, Diablo. I like that.
Diablo was my game. That's the one game that's the only one and only game I play from them is Diablo. I tried to play StarCraft and it wasn't my thing. A couple of my friends were all about Warcraft back in the day. And it's like I couldn't. I mean,
I couldn't with Warcraft neither, man. I was like, I couldn't. Just with the PUBG, I might end up trying it out. That looks kind of interesting. I may try shooter games because I've been getting it back into shooter games, and you probably saw me Back for Blood. That's another game I've been trying to get into. But yeah, I may end up trying it out and see what it is. But I mean, it's cool that Microsoft is doing that. Something they might end up having World of Warcraft into a console, which I've never seen. It's always been on PC. Will they ever do like a control setup UI? People play with controls. I don't think they will play with mouse and keyboard like some of us have. But that's another thing. That's another topic.
I think Blizzard's going to maintain itself as an independent entity, but it will be under the umbrella of Microsoft, right? And they'll probably install Microsoft management in there.
Which is what they need to
kinda-
do. We were talking about, like, I mentioned, maybe this will give Call of Duty franchise the the revamp it needs, maybe similar to what 343 is doing with Halo,
Oh yeah,
at least
definitely.
Infinite. I mean, it'd be really nice to be able to have an open world Call of Duty campaign, or even store multiplayer. But the biggest thing about this is, not too long ago, Microsoft decided to purchase Bethesda. So they're slowly going around and purchasing these big businesses. So you wonder, how is this going to affect like future of gaming? So
Well,
they
some of the in the release that they put out there was some verbiage there that implied that at least for this acquisition, that they were going to keep some of the stuff multi-platform. I would just assume that the only thing they would keep multi-platform is Call of Duty. I think everything else will probably be Xbox only, and they'll leverage that stuff. I think they might piss too many people off if they do Call of Duty just on Xbox, so they might just try to keep the goodwill there. But I would assume everything else is probably just going to be Xbox exclusive, like they do another Overwatch and the Diablos of it all. That'll probably be PC and Xbox going forward.
Well,
And
they're
this
already
is all
yeah,
part of their plan to force people into
the games as a service.
games of service. Like we were just talking.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a mistake
Mhm.
because then they hook you on even the free games on service. You still pay for things within the game. People have forgot. It's like people who lease a car. I want to lease a car, get it taken care of, and then when I'm tired of it, I get rid of it. Yeah, but when you buy a game, as long as you got the hard copy at home, it's yours. It goes with you wherever you go, and as long as you take care of it, it lasts. Now it's all dependent on their servers, their services, and a monthly fee.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a way to funnel more money out of you. And then
Well,
I don't know if you guys have noticed, we haven't really had any new technology. Everything else is just a version of what already existed. It might be smaller, it might be faster, but there's nothing new and inventive being created. So how corporations are surviving is through acquisitions. Find that small company, find a company that's doing something different and just bring it in. And then, for a while you let it keep running, and then you absorb what you want out of it, and the rest of it goes away. And that's kind of a scary way of thinking about.
We're getting to
how
that
things are
whole
going.
thing too with, some people may remember this. I know at least us should, but like the whole thing with AT&T back in the day with the monopoly of Southwestern Bell and all that stuff. The government split them up to make it to where you couldn't do that because you need to have competition, because competition brings innovation. So why, at some point, the government's going to have to step in and say, hey, look,
Right.
you guys are buying all these businesses. You're making it hard for the consumer. I mean, I like Microsoft, as much as the next person. I enjoy, the consoles and everything and the games I get. But, I like the games as a service, but it's like, I like to actually have a game, at least if that's why I do the whole limited run stuff, where I know that the game is on the disc. So that way I don't have to, like, if the servers go down, I can put up my Xbox, put in my disc that has everything already on it, and I can play it. At least I hope so, because I know for a while there, Microsoft with the Xbox One was the whole, you got to be online. You have to be connected online to be able to play your games. And that's ridiculous. Why? We don't have the infrastructure in the US for the internet to be like that, because like my dad is an example. He lives in outside of Dallas, and it's like they don't have great internet service over there. So like when I'm down there, I really can't game over there. I can sometimes, but it's really laggy, and like I definitely can't work.
And that's because everything in the world now is on the online, and we never prepared for a world where your coffee machine is constantly online and talking to something. And so it's a lot of bandwidth being eat up. Second of all, they've now gone the way of the phone company, and they want to tier you to death. Like
I can't say the name of one company, but every time you go over your data cap, they charge you a $10 fee. And it seems like the minute you stream anything, oops, I'm over my data, my cap. And that's part of the problem too, because all these companies are interlocked together. There's pseudo competition. So all they do is find a way to separate you from your money even faster. There shouldn't be a thing. There should not be a data cap, not in this day and age.
Yeah. And for what Vince was saying about, I would like to say about this in particular, because of my profession and things that I read about this particular topic. The thing about the AT&T thing and the software stability, yes, the government did break them up. They broke up Southwestern Bell into all these little Bell regions,
which is where AT&T came from, because it used to be
where
Southwestern.
AT&T came
Yeah,
from.
originally it was all Southwestern Bell.
It was Southwestern Bell and North Atlantic Bell, but between the time that they did that and now, all they did was form AT&T and recoalesce all that stuff back into one company. So it didn't even really matter in the long term, right? And so if and I say that only to say that if AT&T and all those things were a major utility, if the government stepped in, broke them up, and they just did the thing anyway, I doubt that they're going to step in for this thing that we love, but it is essentially entertainment, and it's not a utility at this point. And the other thing is, yeah, it's all not really competition. All these guys are colluding with each other. Every one of them, Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, has pseudo monopolies in most of the country. There's not a whole lot of places in the country where you can go and you have a choice between these service providers at all. And that's a bad thing, because at this point these things are utilities. But as it relates to video games in particular, we still do have this leverage where this thing is still a piece of entertainment, and people they still have to compete with all other entertainment. I mean, Xbox can gobble up all the game companies so they can drive Sony and Nintendo out of the business, but they still have to compete with all other entertainment, movies, and all these other things that can distract them. So you still kind of have a little bit of leverage there, but it will get harder in the future to do things like that, especially with, even now, like, you can have a disc, but just like what you're saying, you have to connect to a server for most games, even if you really shouldn't have to. For a single player game, connect to a server. Now there's some smart guys out there that reverse engineer some of these servers so that you could still play the game. Like we were talking about World of Warcraft, there are tons of private servers for World of Warcraft. If you don't want to deal with Blizzard or anything like that, that you can log on to. But ultimately, and I was thinking about this when we were talking about it in the Discord. I remember when Xbox announced what they called Instant HD, which was like the first thing that I can remember of a streaming movies. And it was a big deal. They called it Instant HD. You press play and the movie started playing, streaming in HD. You didn't have to download anything anymore. And this was Microsoft on the Xbox 360 that first came up with this. I was working at Blockbuster Video at the time, and the picture quality was not as good as DVD. It wasn't nearly as good as DVD. But like always, convenience will always win out over quality. And as long as this thing is more convenient than the other thing, enthusiasts like us are going to get pushed out, because everybody else would prefer the convenience. Most people would prefer the convenience of just downloading the thing, playing it, or as they're pushing more and more towards just streaming the thing. And unless, we can convince people to appreciate the quality of putting a disc in, or even, downloading at this point, because it's just moving so fast from now no disc. Oh, the better thing is to download it, and they're moving really quickly into don't even download it, just press play and stream.
Yeah, just
and then you have even less control over it, because now you don't even have files on your hard disk that maybe you can manipulate to to connect to do a man in the middle, so you connect to your own server. You don't even have that anymore. So now it's completely abstract ownership, and you don't have any of that stuff. And it's just going to be really difficult to convince the average consumer, which is where most of the money comes from, because that's what that's the essential thing that we forget, because I love these things. Everybody loves these things so much. We forget that the bulk of these things are financed by people that don't love them as much as we do, and those are going to be the people that drive the market. And I would think we would need to convince those people that, hey, there's value in owning this thing, and instead of just giving away all your ownership rights in favor of convenience.
And what's exactly what you're saying is, a lot of these companies, if you start tracing who owns who, they all boil down to like 4 or 5 companies. Like AT&T owning Warner Brothers owns DC, owns all these other things. And they do it because they want to diversify. They don't want to be tied up in something that if it fails here, they want to have diverse income streams, revenue streams coming in. But they set up the chains between these, like Microsoft wants to be the provider, and then the people who not only create the content, but then provide the content to you, and also provide you the means of getting it. So they're controlling everything. And so there's no competition, not really.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a spider web. You have to start tracing the threads to get to the center, and once you find the center, it's a central point. And that's what you're seeing with a lot of these companies. Sony, doesn't somebody own Sony now?
Well, like a single? No, I think
No, they're still
Sony is
Japanese based.
Yeah, but I think they're not just it's not just Sony. There's other.
They might be owned by a
companies.
bank. I think they might be owned by a
Owned
bank,
by a
actually.
bank,
Some Japanese bank might own Sony or something.
And
like
so it's really hard to find a company that starts something, creates it, and own it, because somebody's going to come in and buy them up and take it over. And that's why everything is the same. Like Jose was saying, Tekken is still the same. They just keep rehashing the same stuff over and over again. They change up, make it pretty, and all this other thing, but you're not getting anything new. That's why we have in the movie industry, we're having constant remakes, because none of them want to risk any money into doing something that might
be different,
fail.
might be a breakthrough. And that's where, like, 80s movies and stuff, there was a big chance on some of these movies. You think about Terminator, how big of a franchise. Well, it's dying now because they've made 2-3 shitty sequels, but that movie was a B movie.
Yeah.
And it just kept making money hand over fist. And it was just like,
the studio had no faith in it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even market it correctly. They were just hoping to make some money off of what at that time was eventually going to become video rentals. They would make a small theatrical money off theatrical, and then in movie release, like releases to Showtime and whatever, and then eventually video. They did not expect that, but Cameron was smart enough and foresaw that it would happen. And so, like, while he was still filming that movie, he was approached to write a script for Aliens, the sequel to Alien. So he wrote a script, a treatment, and he gave it to him. They said, "We like this, but you're untested. The only other movie director that you have was in
Roger Corman with
Piranha 2, which he didn't even finish it. He was fired on it because the original guy quit. Cameron came in to save it, and then Cameron got into it with Corman and some of the other people, and they fired him, and they had another director come in and finish the film. But because it was set for a certain release, there was no time to go through the paperwork. So they paid Cameron to allow them to keep his name on it. But Cameron was way beyond that. He was like, I have faith in this movie, Terminator. He knew it was going to be something unique. So he tied everything. He told the Brandywine and what's their names who were running Aliens. They said, okay, we're interested in this. He goes, but I want to have total control over it if I get to do it. And I want to be able to have the rights to it so many years down the line. And I'll forfeit some of the money up front that you would pay me to, for ownership. So he was smart. The second thing was that they told him, okay, If Terminator flops, though, you sell us the Alien script, but you won't be involved in it. He was like, I'll see that bet. Terminator was a success. It made a lot of money, and that's what gave him the freedom to make Aliens. And that's what that, a lot of people think Terminator set made him, but it was really Aliens that really said, and then that allowed him to do Terminator 2, which Terminator 2 was when he got into all the new technologies he was developing for the films that he wanted to make. And we have him for all that morphing effect and everything else. And he's been doing that since day one. I remember when he was still working on Submariner, and he purchased a nuclear reactor tank that they lost funding on. And it's this massive underwater tank. And he bought it and turned it into a studio for making underwater movies, which is where they filmed The Abyss.
Mhm.
And he was going to do Submariner, film Submariner in there. And but then he wanted to start doing the real thing. Him and his brother started developing subs and deep water submersibles and what are the robots. And that's what we ended up with Titanic. His movies drove his technology, and the technology paid for his movies.
Mhm.
So, sorry, that was a tangent.
No, it's okay. We went into movies. So okay. Anybody want to add anything, or as I still have? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say the NFTs that they want to been doing now. That that's another thing that they've been trying to. Square Enix, the what's his name, Matsuda, this president CEO of Square Enix, wants to get involved with as well. I don't know how that is. A lot of people don't like it. It's too hard to say. If it's like a pyramid scam, a lot of these gamers don't like it. Mostly like big time streamers, they don't like it too much. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not so sure about the NFTs are going to be working or not. How they're going to be doing it. I know all these game companies are trying to become like basically be better and get more money. Of course, all these the gaming industry is wanting to pick up more money. Talking about that as well with Microsoft buying out Blizzard, Activision. People talks about will Sony do the same with Square Enix? Try to make it exclusive. I hope not. I really hope not.
They don't have the money to do it.
Yeah,
they would have done it. They would have done something like that. But Sony is not near as big a company as Microsoft is, and they would have done it if they could have. Yeah, they don't have as deep pockets like that.
That's a big money if they're gonna have to do something like that. I was like, I hope not, and I hope they don't have that money. Yeah, that's a good thing they don't have that money yet.
Yeah, at this point they don't have to. They've had Final Fantasy on lockdown for a little while now with the different exclusives. Yeah.
Well, they just released the fact that Sony's going to be exclusive for Final Fantasy again anyway. So
yeah, so they could cut a deal and doing that, but and with the NFT thing, them buying it out, and I know I'm at this point I'm an old man, screaming at the cloud, but I wish that stop. Hey Google, stop. And I would really like to just, and it's never coming back. I understand this. I would really like to just buy a thing. Yeah. And if it came down to, okay, you can buy a thing, but now all video games cost $30 more, just give me the option. Just give me the option to buy the thing. I'll decide whether or not, I can afford it or not. But, let me know what the actual thing costs. And there's all kind of smoke and mirrors with the numbers, and they don't want you to really know whether or not they're making money or not and all this thing. And I know that, the train has left the station on microtransactions and all of these things. And, it really is kind of the end. We're seeing this transition period for these types of things, and it's just like ownership is gone. And I saw this, and me and Vince talked about this when we worked in desktop support, and Microsoft made that transition from you being able to buy box copies of Microsoft Office, and now it's mostly a subscription, and you got to go dig 6 web pages deep to find the box copy of it, and even then it's still digital.
Yeah,
Well,
still
and for
digital.
them, it's
Uh,
they started that when they wanted to start doing licensing.
Yeah.
A company could go and buy Microsoft Office
Mhm,
back in the day and then install it on multiple machines.
mhm.
And then all of a sudden came, well, okay, you can do that, but then you got to buy so many license for every machine you're going to install it on. And then it became, oh, well, now you don't get a hard copy. You get you have to buy 1,000 license for a large company, and then you download it and you install it that way.
Mhm.
And then they always hide it by, oh, but we're going to give you all kinds of support. We're going to, you're going to have 10 years worth of updates and us doing things. But when they abandon something, they abandon it and it's
Mhm.
gone,
Mhm.
And so then you have a company who maybe is running Microsoft 10 and then it's obsoleted and the company's not ready to transition over. You don't get any more support. You might if you're, making enough money for
Yeah.
the company, but no. I I used to work for I don't want to drop any names for a company, and
Mhm.
our whole niche was that the company had gotten so big that they sold everything out of the box. No customizations for customers. It was you bought the box. It was enterprise support. I mean, enterprise type software, but you either had to learn how to go to use it, and you'd go to one of their schools, and then you'd come in and have to implement it throughout the company, or you could hire us. We would go in and customize the software to fit your needs, and we were a partner with the parent company. Um, and so I did a lot of rollouts for companies where I'd have to go build test beds and things like that so we could test their environment to make it how it worked. And the one thing I found was that you can't give people what they want. You have to find out what they need and give them what will give them the tools to get to that, what they need. And they would try to sell them on all these bells and whistles that you didn't need. It did nothing for your company. This is what you want. And you could see this natural progression happening in business. And it's just like right now. I was going to bring this up. All right. So the future is not just gaming, but it's becoming an experience. There's all these working on these goggles that you'll wear, which will project it straight into your mind, and your mind will become the video game. All right. And then you will you talk about streaming, then you're going to be immersed in the game, and we're all addictive, and people are going to start getting into these things and not want to come out into the real world. You're going to start building avatars and all these other things, and you're going to get so lost in it. And I was thinking, what's the point of that? Because if you're distracting your customers so much they can't make a living,
Yeah.
how are they going to be buying your product?
Well, because we're going to be virtually mining the Bitcoin for everybody, these big corporations.
But the other thing is that we're already reaching a point where we're not going to be able to employ everybody in the country.
Mhm.
So how do you deal with that? Because automation is already running about 80% of any kind of manufacturing is done on automation. And only so many people are required to keep those machines up and running. That's a lot of people who are going to be without jobs. Okay. It's just like you're talking about taking miners and people who are oil field workers and everything and get them into the green economy. Well, not everybody's going to be able to transition to that. And second of all, there's not going to be as many jobs as on the other. So what happens to those people? You're going to have to distract them. You're going to have to placate them in some way so they don't notice what's going on. And so I see a lot of that happening in the entertainment world, where business and entertainment are kind of co-mixing. And eventually it's going to be where people are just going to get up in the morning, go jack in, and they're going to be playing a video game, and this whole push to wet wire our brains and go online. I'll never do it.
I want David to say some stuff because he's been quiet over here, stroking his beard like Obi-Wan Kenobi, like I've been doing. But
there he is.
But the thing is that I want to add this too, because this is the direction I see where we're going in our future right now. Is we're going to that whole Ready Player One thing, and eventually it's going to get to the point with the NFTs is the fact that you want that awesome skin, that you look like Snake Plissken from Escape from New York, well, come play our game. You can mine it in the dungeon here. Of course, it's going to take you 120 hours or so to get to it, but hey, then you could use it in any of the other games that are out there. It's like, you know, we're getting to this point to where it's like we're going to move away from physical things and we're going to completely go into the digital space. So instead of us being, you know, physical humans in the physical world, you know, living our lives, we're going to be living in the virtual space. And, you know, at that point, you know, we're gonna be in the world of like Johnny Mnemonic and a couple other things.
Or surrogate.
Yeah, surrogates.
I mean, it's like, you know, I saw another headline about how there's a bunch of companies that are spending millions of dollars on what was it, real estate in the metaverse. And I guess I don't understand that concept, right? It's like the idea of real estate in the physical world is, you know, I want an awesome house that's, you know, 20 acres that's sitting right by a river, has this beautiful view, all this stuff. And if I want that, it's going to cost me more. Or if I want to be in a nice condo in the middle of downtown because I like urban centers or whatever insanity might be infecting my brain at that point, then, you know, I want a big, nice space and I don't want to be cramped in some little bitty closet size thing, but it costs money in order to earn that, right? And to me, it's like the metaverse, if it's computer space, then it's infinite space that should be able to be whatever the hell I want it to be. So what are you just buying up the gigabyte space of the server? And that's
you're only limited to the size of the
there's the scam. Like they can only sell you that beachfront property once because it only exists one time
in reality
on that beach in that reality. In the metaverse, they can sell you that as many times as they want, and then convince you that there is rarity there. They convince you that this digital thing that we all know is infinitely copyable. They can say, oh, no, it's not really infinitely copyable. They convince you that no, this is a unique thing. Well, we all know it's not a unique thing. It's made of ones and zeros, but they can sell that more than once and convince you that it's a unique thing.
If you want it in purple,
the scam.
You get it in purple. You can theme it out to whatever you want.
Well, it feels like, you know, buying stars, right? It's like you don't actually physically own a star, but hey, here's a cute little piece of paper that says I own Alpha Centauri 5 or whatever the hell, right?
Sure.
But it's kind of the same thing with like, so I heard somebody bring
up
that
owning a mile of highway, one of those where you could buy a mile of highway.
Mile of highway, yeah.
There's a great Seinfeld episode about that. I'm not going to sidetrack this anymore.
But didn't somebody do that with the moon? Wasn't there a person who was selling?
Yeah, I think so. On the moon.
Areas of the moon, and then they got in trouble with the international court.
Come get your piece of cheese.
The moon, you can't sell something you don't own, and the moon cannot be owned by treaty any country on the earth. But somebody was selling them. I was like, and so when you buy it, what are you going to do? You're going to move up there?
Yeah.
You're going to build a house?
No, you're going to put your consciousness in a synthetic body and that can live in the vacuum of space, and you can live on your little moon colony with no one else up there or other synthetics just like you.
You'll get together and you'll play little games of house with like small Barbie and Ken like dolls, and that's how you'll play out. If anyone knows that Philip K. Dick reference. But no, and then like with NFTs, right? Like that idea of I forgot who it was that said, oh yeah, you'd be able to move this between games, but Square Enix wouldn't provide necessarily the means
for that.
The avatar isn't going to be able to follow you across games because that game might not have. How are you going to take a avatar of like Virgil from DMC5 and put it into like a Crash Bandicoot game, right? That game engine isn't made to run that particular avatar. So unless we do get to the Shadowrun level of
or Ready Player One too,
of inbred, corporations, right? Then you'll never get to that point. I mean, and like when it comes to NFTs, right? The selling point is that you are buying something because there's that digital fingerprint that says, hey, this is yours, right? Whatever this thing, it's a little gift that now you own or whatever, right? That because you have the print saying, hey, yeah, this this particular little item code is mine, therefore this GIF or whatever is mine. It's just
It's like buying the sky, man. I buy property, but they tell me I don't own the sky above my property. States tell me I can't own the rain that falls on my house. They're convincing you of ownership of something that you can't. It's a It's a
I feel
thought.
I feel like Andrew House is talking through here somehow. No, or what is it from BioShock?
Yeah, it's a digital proof of purchase for a thing that you never own, that you never really own, because they'll sell you these things, and then when you go to enforce any type of laws related to actual ownership, you can't. So you could go buy this clip of LeBron James doing something, but the actual owners of that are the NBA. So you can't go and copyright strike somebody or prevent anybody from playing it or get money back when somebody plays it. You own that. You own that proof of purchase. You don't own the thing.
So where it kind of comes into play is when it's an actual original creation, right? When it's a real original creation that then someone is making an image or an animation of, and that's what they're selling. That's whenever you could say that it's actually legitimate. So, right now it's an early market, right? And early markets for everything are rife with scams and people in it to make as much money as they possibly can. And eventually there will be litigation against different people, and there will be, restrictions and crap put on it, and people will get smart about it. And then you'll start to see an actual market come out of this thing. What that market will look like, who knows, right? We're not there. Eventually corporations will find a way to monetize it. Maybe it will turn into a thing where, Microsoft buys up 90% of the video game, publishers out there. And now all of a sudden your DMC5 Virgil can be in Crash Bandicoot, because now that whole thing is owned by Microsoft, and now they're allowing that to be within, the code of the game and allow it to apply it across all of those different facets of it. But it's like, but that's forever away from now, right? And between now and then,
it's not as far off as you think it is.
We already have it. They're already doing that. You can already do that. Like if they wanted to, the best case in point is it's right on something like Super Smash Brothers, right? Like, you want to play as this character in this game, they just put them in the game and sell them to you. Like, there's no, and then you already have a digital receipt that says you bought this.
Yeah, they just get the okay, and they gotta
get the okay, and they just put it in there. They just put like a new buzzword on it to say that it's an NFT, just like you were saying, to get people that, I don't know if you call them suckers, to get people that want to spend money in an emerging market to throw some money at it. But it's technically already possible, and they can track it with these individual stores. And
I'm not saying it's not possible, but something like that, right? With Smash Brothers, it's the idea of the NFT is supposed to be the exclusivity of it, right? Because now I own rights to this thing, so you can't really do that. Like, so then you would have a game like Super Smash Brothers that already has a roster of 100, however big the roster of Ultimate is right now. It skips your mind up there right now. But then you would have to have the ability to have 500 characters in it, right? And Vince has got the NFT that allows him to play Chrono, from Trigger, and I've got the one that allows me to play Isaac from Golden Sun, and you've got the one that allows you to play Master Chief from Halo, and no one else has the ability to play that character, but I do, because I own this little thing.
Yeah, but see, but how do you know that you won't? That how many times do you get to buy something like that, and you own a right to use it, but then somebody else has a right to use it because they're using it in their game, and somebody else is using it over here, but you aren't playing the same game together.
Right, but and I guess that kind of goes to where it's still flexible to see what the market's actually going to do with it, because all the discussions I've ever heard about these things is supposed to be that idea that it is now exclusively my ownership, that I have the ability to take hold of this, right?
Well, they're not.
If it's not that, if it's just I'm renting the ability to use this, right? If you can be Chrono and I can be Chrono and we can all play Master Chief and Smash Brothers, right? That's what we want. But that's not really the idea of, at least that's my understanding of it, is not the idea that what they're selling. They're trying to say, hey, here's this thing that now you own because it's got this.
No, I don't think it's actually ever going to be ownership. It's going to be a license to use that,
Yeah.
because nobody ever wants to give up that.
Yeah, the rights to be able to have
the right to,
make-
that's mine. You know, it's just like, okay, moving this over into comics. Go to any convention. There are tons of people making money selling IPs that actually belong to somebody else. But because they draw it their own style, or they add something or change it, it's their artwork.
Right.
If you try to copy their artwork, you're going to get in trouble. But they're copying somebody's artwork and somebody's IP. So what the companies do is they realize you can't enforce this law. You'll spend so much time in litigation, and it's good advertising for me. Having, I don't care who does how many images of Deadpool out there, it's advertising Deadpool. So,
Right.
and we own that, and that's money. It all ultimately comes back to us. Disney, however, enforces their law on everything. If you get caught selling something, whether it's cakes, animation, figurines, or anything that is a owned character of Disney, they will take you to court. And they, every time that you are caught doing that, each one is its own incident. It's not like grouped together. So you sold 250 images. Well, each one of those will have to be settled as a court case with its own fine. And you can quickly find yourself in trouble. Companies will never give up ownership of something. They will license it. Marvel learned that when they licensed all of their characters out when they were
for the
hurting for
movies.
money,
Mhm.
and then they spent a fortune trying to buy back those characters so they could control them. And it took Disney bankrolling it for them to be able to do it. And they still can't do it with Spider-Man yet.
That's because Sony don't want to give up that cash cow.
No, but
Oh, no,
why
no,
not?
no.
Because they were hurting financially. Every Sony movie that Marvel made, Marvel movie Sony made, did not make money. And
Right.
the way that the contract was written, it allowed them a grace period. Oh, this movie didn't make money, so I either have to get another movie into production, and as long as it hits theaters by a certain date, I can maintain my license on it.
Yeah.
They were really close to losing Fantastic Four, and they after they canceled Amazing Spider-Man 3, they were about to lose Spider-Man, but Marvel kept trying to pressure them, give it back to us, give it back, and they finally came to a deal where Marvel really controls what they do with those characters. Marvel writers and people are hired by Sony. The Marvel people are controlling, and that's why they started actually making money on these characters, because
Yeah, but Sony owns the distribution rights, so
that's right, and they still make money no matter what.
This pie. That's it. That's fine. And again, it's one of the, again, it's such a weird, open, new thing, right? That again, companies will find a way, right, to implement this crap and monetize it. They will 100% find a way to do that. And between now and there's a lot of black market bullshit and people getting suckered, right? And that's just the way it'll go until
But the one thing that we've forgotten is that back at some point in history, the consumer had the control. If you didn't like something, you protested
Spoke with your wallet.
but your wallet. I didn't like it, I'm not going to go see this movie. Okay, well, maybe we shouldn't be making this kind of movie because there's no audience for it. But they don't do that anymore. They don't even care. A lot of these movies are made for other reasons other than to make a movie.
Yes,
it's
it's
I'm
agenda-driven
sorry,
or-
John Carpenter. I mean, not John Carpenter. I'm thinking about John Carpenter. John Carter, because it didn't meet expectation, was considered a failed movie. But it made almost $300 million on a limited release that wasn't even advertised to customers because they didn't know how to advertise the very first adventurer. John Carter is it. It all started with him.
Also that weird, the other famous story about that is the fact that there was that movie that came out, a few months ahead of time, the Mars Needs Moms or whatever.
Yeah.
And they felt that the term Mars was like
associated with the other.
so they wanted to push themselves as far away from the idea of Mars as they could, and that's why they drop John Carter of Mars off and just left it as John Carter.
Yeah, John Carter. But
Right.
you know, it's that whole idea that, like Adrian was talking about, we don't know how much it costs to make this stuff. They play with the numbers, and so they went, wow, well, because of it costs. They usually say it costs you 50% of what the overall cost of a movie is for the advertising of the film, and then there's distribution, and then there, you know, the what theaters and all this other stuff. So we lost money on this film. I can't see how they lost money on the film, because they still had TV rights. Every time it was aired on television, they got paid for it. Every time cable showed it, it got paid for it. It was on video, DVD,
Any product placements
Blu-ray,
in the
any
movie?
product placement. They made money, but
But-
they know how to hide that money.
Right.
Um,
But it's not the cash cow that they wanted, right? It's
no, it wasn't. No, because you had a Marvel movie make $1 billion, and now that's the new standard.
That's your
Yeah,
standard.
that's understand it. Yeah.
Because back then it was Titanic. Titanic set that record because it was just, you know.
But you know, and that's another thing people forget. Titanic didn't make that money up front. Titanic stayed in
No.
the theaters for a year. Blade stayed in theaters for a year. And when Blade first came out, there was nothing Marvel on that movie. They didn't have the Marvel logo. They didn't do that. Movie was so removed from it being a comic. They didn't want people knowing it was based on a comic. Only comic book readers knew where Blade came from. And that movie was in theaters for a full year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but
like
now-
That's how you make money.
Jurassic Park.
Is the overseas market is so much bigger. Right. So now that the overseas market's so much bigger, you can make that money like that, right?
Like
now,
that, yeah.
there. So, I mean, it goes back to like what we were talking about a minute ago, right? It's all about making cotton candy for the masses, right? Like you know, yeah, they keep doing remakes and all that, but then every once in a while you have that diamond in the rough that comes out, and then they find a way to just blow that up. John Wick, right? John Wick. The first John Wick movie is a B movie.
Yeah.
It's a revenge. It's just the classic revenge plot.
Yeah.
But it had enough little mysteries and tidbits to it that gave it this aura of there's a bigger backstory of things that are happening here. That's how you got the second movie, the third movie, the fourth movie that's coming out, the TV show that they're doing.
And then you're gonna find out that it's actually Matrix.
Giant right? So it took it. Sometimes we get lucky and someone does finally pull the trigger because it's a passion project of somebody who's got a big enough name recognition that they can go out there and get it. Because now it's like, you know, the movie Nobody, it's described as John Wick, right? Atomic Blonde was the female John Wick. Now that's
John Wick, yeah.
described in that way because somebody was able to get the funds together to do that passion project, to create this thing that became a great movie. And however you may or may not feel about the sequels, right? It's at least that first one was the genesis and created it. Same thing with games, right? I had a friend of mine who was trying to get me into Destiny, so I went out and for like $20 on Amazon, I bought the Destiny 2 with like the first 2 DLC in it, and I showed him what I got, and he's like, "Dude, why'd you get that?" I'm like, "Because this was what they had available, and it's the cheapest thing." He's like, "Man, there's already been like 3 more DLCs after that, and those first 2, like half that stuff you can't even play anymore. The gear that you get from it's pointless." I'm like, "So wait, these DLCs came out for this, and they have no bearing on the meta of the game at this point?" And you know, that's where the casuals come in, right? We played games for the experience, the story, all that stuff. Yeah, there was the cases like Halo and fighting games where, yeah, the story was a part of it, but the majority of the casual audience came into it because, man, I just got to run around and shoot people and punch aliens in the face and, you know, lighting dudes up with needlers. And hey, there was that time I did a 360 no scope, and like all that stuff kind of became a thing. So there is that push away from a story driven, you know, true narrative to it that you can play all the way through. And it's more of, I'm just going to jump in at points and play what's available at that time, right? You don't have to necessarily know all the backstory to it. It's just getting into it and getting to shoot stuff or getting to fight things or do all that. And it makes it simpler. It's like Fortnite and PUBG and all that. It's just because there's so much stuff going on. There's so many choices and things that we can make. It's so much easier to just be able to hop into a game and just turn your brain off and do a bunch of nonsense and it be fun. And if they can, you know, next month sell you for $20 a bunch of skins of Marvel characters and Cobra Kai and all that crap, then they'll just keep selling you seasons of stuff. And it's so much less resources to add in things like that they can sell to you for what, you know, in the grand scheme of things is an exorbitant rate, but that's how they make their money. And it's easy on them. That's where the casuals are. That's where all that comes into. So it's where the money is, guys. It's that giant pile of money sitting over there.
So going off what David was talking about John Wick and the creativity, and going back to like the Microsoft acquisition of these companies. What I feel like Microsoft did and a lot of these other companies are doing is, instead of coming up with the new John Wick for you know, in gaming form, instead of like building up a new studio with some new ideas to bring it up, they just want guaranteed revenue, right? Everybody's looking for guaranteed money, as close to guaranteed money as you can get. And you know, I don't feel any kind of emotion to a corporation because it's not a real thing or a person. I would say that it is a trend that we have now where everybody, you don't want to do anything unless it's guaranteed for you to make money. And so Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard with all of these guaranteed money making franchises instead of building their own, it is the trend. And it's like, so do we think that that's a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I don't know. I would like more. I think you can go back to the well a few times for a sequel here and there. You know, did the Matrix need a sequel? Maybe not. Did John Wick could use some sequels? Yeah, I would say I could watch, you know, 7 John, you know, as long as
As
going
long as
through,
there's a
it's not a heavy story. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So, but is it a good thing or a bad thing for people to want guaranteed revenue? I mean, I want to go to work and be guaranteed a paycheck every day that I go to work. Sure.
So,
but like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know what everybody thinks about that. As far as the Microsoft acquisition goes, is it a good thing for them to do that just so they can have guaranteed revenue, or no?
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to go into was the fact that I want to backtrack just 1 second. So
Sure.
It's Andrew Ryan, and sorry. So my brain, this is how I'm going to give you a glimpse of how my brain works. So like I said, Andrew House. Well, as you know, Andrew House was originally the CEO of what? Sony, the PlayStation. So my brain went from like, it's Andrew, this, we're talking about Sony, Microsoft. And it was like, it totally forgot the last name of Ryan, the creator of Rapture from BioShock. But anyway, the biggest thing is though, is like, I was talking with Edward about this, and you know, it's a good thing and it's not, because we're slowly moving away from, and actually we're moving more faster than we think away from physical media. You know, they want to have more control of their distribution of games. You know, we could have had a moment in time where digital could have been cheaper because it's cheaper to produce. You don't have to have the physical media, that in the case, design, the art, all that stuff.
Storage.
It's just the storage for the game itself. And you know, you could have say, if you're moving in that direction, you know, I'm going to sell Sony and Microsoft could have done this. All right, you have the physical version, $70 or $59, $64.99 or whatever, versus digital, $50. I guarantee you more people would come in and go and buy that digital copy because it's cheaper than to go get the physical. And only the people that want that physical item would go for it.
But I guarantee someone sat down, they probably did that a couple times. Like, all this stuff always gets tested out, right? Especially when we're at the point that we're at now. And like what Adrian said earlier, right? Convenience is key. Convenience is where it comes from. So they did that. Someone in their company did the math, and they said, okay, we're going to release this, and we're going to say that they're the same price, and we're going to see how well the digital sells. And if the digital sells to a certain point, guess what? their profit margin, because of the fact that it takes less to do that,
It goes up.
is so much wider
Yeah,
than
yeah,
it
sure.
was. And so if it takes, 50 people to buy the physical to earn them, $50, but it only takes 5 people buying the digital to earn them $50, guess what? They're going to keep that digital.
And-
Yeah.
And they're going to manipulate the circumstances to increase you that way. They're going to direct you towards those digital purchases. Yeah, I mean, I want you to think about something. Think about how many movies there are that have been out there, yet never made it to DVD or let alone Blu-ray. Last time they were ever put out were on VHS. All these movies, and one of the promise of digital and streaming is that you'll have access to all of these old movies. All these things that nobody's produced, they're sitting in one of these studios libraries like MGM. Has it happened? No. And then so once they parse it out in little bits just to get you hungry. Netflix puts something on and you watch it, but then it's gone. Amazon does the same thing. So does Max, and so does Disney. There's a movie that Disney did was called Island at the Top of the World. It had never been released outside of the theater. All right. I hunted for that thing, and there were bootlegs of it, that you could buy. Horrible. Disney just added it to their subscription service. It's only a limited time. It's going to get pulled away. But because I love that movie and I haven't seen it since I was a kid, and nostalgia sells, people buy that service to get that one time, so they keep bringing people to their streaming service, which is what they want to show. They don't always want to show that it's making a lot of money, but they want to show that it's bringing in viewers.
Yeah.
And then once they can start funneling people in a different, that momentum just carries you that way. And that's all they do.
And that's where like Netflix right now too is the fact that they've just announced that they're going to be increasing their rate for streaming.
Again, they just did it.
So, but going back to what I was saying is the fact that like we as gamers don't want NFTs. Main gamers really don't want, at least I would assume main gamers, I would hope that most gamers would rather have physical versus digital, but it's all going that direction. We're what, in our 40s? Late 30s to going into our 40s and stuff. We're only a small demographic. If the people out there that want these things outweigh us, then it doesn't matter what we want, because it doesn't matter if we speak with our wallet, because people are going to do what they're going to do anyway.
But
you got this younger generation. Correct. And you got this younger generation.
All these board games that are coming out again. You've got a lot of, like we were talking about, what's the deal where you pay the money, the crowdfunding?
Oh, Kickstarter.
Kickstarter. We are seeing people rejecting some of that and going back into buying board games, which is a total different direction. It requires the theater of the brain. It requires an imagination. It's more interactive physically than just sitting in front of a screen with a controller. So that shows, and if it didn't show it, people wouldn't be growing right now.
It's like a trend or something going on.
Yeah, people are getting tired of what they're seeing in the video game industry and things like that, and there's this kind of a small shift backward. And so if it gained momentum, you'd see all these video game places trying to figure out, what did we do wrong? Not creators. Let's try to get them back into this direction. They're going to try to figure out, because they see what trends are. They have data farmers that are just constantly looking at all this information for trending, and they're going to follow wherever the trend is. And so if we put down the video game every now and then, pick up a board game, invite some buddies over and have a board game night, more people get introduced to it, more people will have fun with it, it'll be an industry that's competition for the other, because everything is in competition for our attention. And the way that the competition is structured right now is whatever is flashy gets the attention, just like whatever's the loudest gets the attention. But sometimes the subtle things are a little bit better. Case in point, back in the day in the 90s and early 2000s, started in the late 80s, movie studios created offshoot studios, which they made more indie films and more low budget films on. And those had lower costs, but actually ended up making more money per cost versus the cost to make it. And those were the money makers that allowed them to do blockbusters. But blockbusters aren't working anymore. More and more, fewer and fewer people go see them. So they quit making, 5 blockbusters a year. And now we start having like 2 or 3, and then it's broken up throughout the year. So, and it was because they got away from the focus of where they were making their money. Blockbusters was all the icing on the cake, but your cake was those small budgeted movies that actually connected with an audience, stayed in a theater, and made most of your money for you. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing something similar now that people are offshooting into one of the things, because remember, it was board games and RPGs, and then it was video games, and then card games showed up. And card games started putting a hurt on video games. All right, so video games started changing and adjusting what they were trying to market. Then people switched back over to there, and then people started wanting to come back into RPGs, and now that's a big thing. David's personally keeping everybody in business.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh over there.
I try.
I do too. I
guess back to what Adrian was getting back to, right? It's like, yeah, Microsoft gobbling, or any company that goes in and gobbles up these known IPs as a means to try and guarantee a source of revenue. I think at the end of the day, right, it turns into, if we do see smaller studio type games come up, right? It's like, yeah, it's great if they do a Diablo 4 or whatever, right? Or they do a re-release of Warcraft 3 that's all dolled up and pretty and all that stuff, or they come out with a brand new Call of Duty that's got all kinds of crap that, just blows everyone's minds. But they're still selling you nostalgia because it's nothing new. Right. But hold on. So I understand that. So if them doing those allows for them to have the revenue to turn around and allow the smaller publishers to, or again, passion projects within their company to create, other more innovative games that might be the, John Wick, right? This thing that, or, roguelites became a huge thing, right? Hollow Knight was this big deal. And all these little,
Minecraft. Well, you gotta look at the companies too. Super Giant Games with Bastion, right. The new one, Hades, or what is it?
Yeah.
So if that's what it leads to, right? If big companies swallowing up these other big companies allows for there to be money that can encourage. It might not be as much creativity as we want to see. It might not be the amount of creativity that we're used to, but as long as it allows those diamonds on the rough to be created, to come to the forefront, so that for every 3 Call of Duties that are good and the public's into and all that, we get a Shadow of the Colossus type thing that just comes out, and so that there is that continued enjoyment. I don't know. I pay less and less.
It's too far between them. We end up with too many of the same garbage being released, and it's the independent small companies who are making those little passion projects.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they start getting a following, and then here comes the piranha.
Yeah, and
the big company, and they gobble them up. So,
but those indie companies, where do they come from, right? A lot of those are devs from the bigger companies. That
sometimes,
but sometimes there's somebody who worked at one of those big companies, and they decide, I want to go off and do something different because I don't agree with what's happening in the big company, and they go off and innovate and create something new. and then that gets gobbled up. And then now we have to do that all over again because the other ones are going to run that shit into the ground. You know,
It's always about trends. Like that. I think that I was reading upon something about Final Fantasy 11 and how they're thinking about how they're going to release this. Here, try this. You got to think about it as a chef. I can't remember it's one of the presidents, and they're for Square Enix, and we're talking about it where we live in a time that trends happen. They were talking about Final Fantasy 11 is going to be on mobile, but that was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mobile games, it was something big. It was trendy. Everyone wanted to play mobile games. Now, 5 years later, they're not a big thing. Streaming might not be a big thing later on. Twitch might not even be a big thing. They may end up trying something else. Maybe podcasts might be something big in the future or not. They're talking about these video games. That's one thing these trends are going, and these big businesses are trying to keep up with the trends and when to release these things. So, and it's something they may have up. Okay, this is the trend now. We got to release it right now so we can get back some money here. These are trending. These are things that are trending now. Like, let's say for the NFTs, the cryptocurrency, all that. I feel like, okay, that's just the trend right now. I feel like my brother is into it. I got into it a little bit. I made a little money out of it, but I just don't feel like it's going to be something for me or it's going to be good, like something physical. I believe that we should start saving silver and gold, or something physical to have, because those are going to be worth something in the future, and that's something to have, and you can store in a safe.
Because we're going to
unless
where you find
remember, salt
everything.
was valuable at one point, and it was used as a currency, the most abundant resource on the planet. That's the thing with
Spices
a trend and a fad, they come and go. But you had said something, Jose, when you were talking about the trending that pops up in my head, and I drove myself right off the road. I'm sorry. Just go ahead. It'll come back.
It'll come back. Well, yeah.
I went to go get a sandwich and a drink.
What it was that it was the lizard that looked at you and just decided to kamikaze
lizard,
off your car.
How many people can say they had a lizard that wanted to use your car to commit suicide and stared at you the whole time
while you were driving?
Yeah. I'm going to go back with where Adrian was talking about. Sometimes it is these trends, and I thought about it. It's like, yeah, it's right. It's true. Sometimes these are the trends that are happening, and they try to make something, like these big businesses set up something for us. Like right now, all this digital stuff is happening, the NFTs, the cryptocurrency, everything's all digital. Anything to keep entertaining and the convenience of the consumer. Yeah, it's easier, it's cheaper, but then again, sometimes it could be, little, it's better to have, like, some people like you or me, sometimes it would be nice to have like some kind of physical thing. I was like, okay, that's nice, but when these trends are gone, then what?
Well, and that you reminded me exactly, because that's what you just said. So let me ask you a question. How many games come out that feel incomplete, that have to take a DLC to kind of give you what the story should have been? We used to get completed games. Exactly. You felt like you played a game, and now you can play a game in 9 hours and feel like you hadn't done anything, and you got to wait till we're going to do this in the DLC. Well, why wasn't that in the real game? I would rather play an open world game than to have some of the newer stuff, because I'll just go off and create my own adventures.
Exactly.
Ghost of Tsushima or Breath of the Wild. You just go off on an adventure, find your own thing, and then then you can go hit on the story. That's why, like, Bethesda stuff with at least with Fallout. I mean, I know people like Skyrim and everything, but I like Fallout. I like that.
Fallout, Vince. Skyrim you can play through the Alexa. I know you're a Fallout fanboy, but Skyrim has been the boat upon which Bethesda has floated.
You say this now. Just wait till they have the Pit-Boy edition Alexa. Hey Alexa. All right,
what are you gonna play?
His uncle, my brother, who hated video games, he would rather sit and barbecue and drink beer, was addicted to Skyrim. And first game I had ever. And I remember playing it, and
Oblivion and Skyrim,
Oblivion and Skyrim, and somebody trying to, become a friend, and I'm like, who is this idiot? And then my brother going, why wouldn't you go off and do that with me? I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, that was me. So what are you doing playing video games? And, my brother was a merchant marine. He was a crane operator and he did a lot of things. He electrician on a ship, fireman. So he had, you can ask Vince, I had TV envy every time I went into my brother's house because his wall was a TV. And he would sit in his chair in front of that and play video games. And I was like, when did this happen? We grew up together. I don't understand this. And it was because my nephew introduced him to Oblivion, and Oblivion led him to Skyrim, but he wouldn't play anything else.
Yeah.
Those were his games.
Yeah.
And it was because he could just go off and get lost in the game.
Because he could role play. It basically gets that whole thing like this all started with us role playing, and we wanted to take that further. And so there's certain games out there that you can play that give you that same experience. You may not get the full lore story that you might get if my dad was DMing, but it's one of those things. But I'll do this. For me, answer Adrian's question about do I feel this is a good thing or not? I don't know. I'm indecisive about it. I think it's going to be good for gaming as far as like the games that we're maybe getting out, because, with Microsoft kind of being over that, there's going to be a little bit more quality assurance and they may have a little bit more money to develop these games. But is that worth the trade-off of going completely digital? And I don't like the fact that, if I own a game and then it decides to rotate out of the Game Pass, I can't play that game again if I want to, unless it rotates back in. So if I'm like David over here, who may take a year to more to play it through a game because he's got so much going on, well, I guess I'm never going to play that game again. I got my memories of getting halfway through it. Yay. And then, but to touch on the other part of this was when we were talking about indie side of things. My game of the year last year was Cyber Shadow. It was like everything about that game is great. The story bits that you got out of it, the atmosphere, the music, the gameplay, it just built on this whole thing of like cyber ninjas. I mean, come on, you can't get any cooler than that. But there's another game coming out from another indie developer, the ones that made The Messenger, which is another great game based on ninjas. But this game coming out is called Sea of Stars, and it's basically like a homage to Chrono Trigger, and it looks fantastic. It's got enough of its own entity that, it's not like a copy, but it plays homage to how great Chrono Trigger is. And it's like these indie developers that get to do these things and are not like restricted by the man or, the corporation that's over them telling me, you need to do this. It's like I tend to move more towards indie on certain games. Now there's games that I love, that the franchises that I'm continuing to play, or there may be a something that comes out from one company that I'm enjoying, but I'll gravitate to the indie stuff. Like, it was really cool being able to play Blaster Master again, redone with nice almost 16-bit graphics. It just took me back to my childhood. So I don't know. I hope for the best, but I just don't know where games. It's going to be great for my son because he's going to have what I have, plus he's going to be able to have everything digital. And the gaming world
that scares me because I see Edward and
Alice.
Anybody who's a parent and Alice just buried in a screen.
Yes, I know.
And the screen changes how the brain works. The lights affect the brain, the stuff in the brain. I don't mean the synapses and all that stuff, but the chemicals that happen in the brain. So we're physically changing ourselves by the things that we do. And it worries me that they can walk around through life with their face plugged into a screen and be oblivious to what's going on around them. And I think that as parents, we need to reel that back in again And like with anything, moderation, which is what I said earlier, you know, you get 3 hours of video game time. After that, I want to see you go out and play. I want to see you build something. I want to see you draw something. I want to see you using your imagination. Because, you know, as I told you as a kid, the best theater is the theater of the mind. There's nothing they can put on a screen that's going to beat what you can create with your own imagination.
Yeah.
And we have an awful lot of kids that walk around with a screen, their phone like this.
I'm gonna make it.
How many restaurants do you get to go to and you sit around and watch people eating and they're all sitting at the table together and not one of them is talking to each other? And some of them are texting to the person directly across from them.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add this one last thing. You know, you ever wonder why the Greys have big eyes, right? All right. Let's just wrap this up. And then that way we can save the John Carpenter episode for another time.
Oh, come on. Let's do a round table of at least what our favorite John Carpenter movie.
Okay, so we'll do that. So just recently,
I came here for the Carpenter, not for this other crowd.
I know. There's a big in-depth episode that needs to be done and dedicated to John Carpenter. But he just recently had a birthday. So most of us here, he's had a big influence on his storytelling in his film and even his music. So I'm going to do this. What we'll do to kind of round this out is everybody give their favorite movie of John Carpenter and how that may have influenced them growing up in their life now. Who wants to go first?
Shall we draw straws?
Oh yeah, that'll work.
I gotta look at John Carpenter real quick.
That's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
Who is John Carpenter? Was he a writer?
The Fog, wasn't it one of them?
The Fog was one of them.
Yeah.
That
and the one with Tom Welling. Mouth of Madness. That not the Tom Welling Fog.
Yeah, mine was definitely Big Trouble in Little China. That's the one for me.
Okay.
That movie is incredible. Still holds up to this day. It is. Nobody can convince me otherwise that everything about Mortal Kombat wasn't ripped off from this movie. And you know, it's all around classic for me.
So I'm gonna ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the creature that was climbing up out of the back of his truck, the little demon Bigfoot thing, because he killed the main villain, was now imprinted on him and wasn't trying to get him, but now was going to follow him around to do his bidding?
I never thought about that, but yes, I will say yes.
Okay. So here's the funny thing about this. So there has been comics that are sequels to that series, so there's a movie, and that were co-written by John Carpenter, and that's the thing, is that the creature wasn't trying to get him. It was like he's now his master, like basically like Jack's his master, so he's going to protect him. So, and
you know what made me think of that? I was watching the freaking Harry Potter movies, and the very last movie with the when they, you know, the wand. What was the one? The
Elder Wand.
Elder Wand, and how that whoever was the last one who defeated its owner, it was down loyal to, and you didn't have to have it in your hand. It was going to still help you. And I was watching over the weekend because it was John Carpenter. I kept calling Vince. I was like, "Why is there so many John Carpenter movies on?" And I just was watching all these old movies, and and one of the last ones I watched was Big Trouble in Little China. And when I saw him climb out of the truck, for some reason, Harry and talking about the wand popped in my head, and I was like, that's what that is. He's not hunting him down. He's gonna travel around and be his little minion with him.
Yeah.
You know?
I can see that.
Okay, so David, I'll let you go next.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's been brought up before because I've told the story about how I terrified my daughter with it. But I mean,
because you're such an evil person.
That I ever saw was The Thing, right? It was years and years later that I saw Big Trouble and Prince of Darkness and all that stuff. But The Thing was the first one that I ever saw, and I saw pieces of it. It wasn't until I went to Coach's College in Colorado Springs that we all sat down, and every single night that we were there, we would sit down in this like little area, and they had computers set up, and somebody brought the DVD of The Thing, and they'd throw it in there and pop it on, and we'd all just crowd around this little bitty screen and watch that over and over again. And it's just a fun movie, right? It's an insanely quotable movie. Just it's a nice tight story to it. The effects still hold up amazingly, right? The scene with the head coming off of the dude's corpse,
Norris.
is amazing. The spider head, I mean, just
you gotta be effing kidding me.
and probably one of my favorite moments in it is in the very beginning, whenever it's the dog, right, the dog kennel, and you have the thing that's like William Birkin's shoulder, right, with the giant eyeball that's there, but then it splits open, and like how that looks, to just viscera and the color and all that to it before the weird tentacle mouth made of dog tongues and teeth comes shooting out of it. It's like it was just such a cool. I hadn't ever that I'd always liked monster movies, but they were all like Godzilla type. That one was the one that really kind of drew me into the
Biollante,
the Eldritch, right? The Eldritch side of that's where it kind of got me curious about like Lovecraft and all of that cosmic horror is really, and that's really what it is, right? The Thing introduced me to the concept of cosmic horror, and that's really what that did for me.
All right, Dad.
Okay. The Thing is it, but I'm gonna explain why. But I'm probably the only one out of this group who saw Halloween in a theater, and how transformative that was for me.
Yeah.
I'd seen Italian horror movies and all those other things, so I kind of knew what that gore was. My mom was into those movies, so I was her tag along. I saw the original 2000 Screaming Maniacs and all those other, where the blood was so non-realistic and the special effects were not there, but it was just the shock value. But Halloween was like really taught me something totally different of how a film could be made, how it could be structured, and it made me want to know more about who this character was, who Michael Myers was, why was he doing things. And then I went immediately out and bought the book, and then the book had so many more details in it, but I have always been into Lovecraft. I also watched the original black and white, The Thing, just like I knew It, The Terror from Beyond Space, that I knew the alien had not stolen from, but it was doing a homage to it. Dan O'Bannon said he loved those movies. I could connect with him because I did too. I was that kid sitting in front of the TV watching all those horror movies on Saturday afternoon or late at night. And so I was separated from my wife, and I got somebody to watch my kids. And I went and watched The Thing in the theater. And I had already read, because I had a teacher turn me on to Who Goes There when I was in school. And we were talking about the horror books and stuff. And she goes, you should read this. And she goes, it's really written about the Cold War era, the paranoia of not trusting who your neighbor is. But it's really based in that science fiction world that you like. You might like it. I loved it. Went and saw this movie years later. And one of the first things I realized, it was 98 degrees outside, and it was hot as hell and humid, especially in Houston, Texas. 5 minutes into this movie, I was freezing. And it was because the visuals were affecting my mind. Because there was so much ice, I could feel myself being pulled into the screen. Then the music, that that whole thing, that soundtrack was there. The characters were familiar and close enough to the original story and nothing like the old black and white movie. So I was in that movie, and then I was trying to survive. In my mind, I was one of the characters, and I was trying to see if I could survive and predict what was going on and survive that movie. And I made it to McCready, where McCready was. And I was like, wow, I survived this movie. And then all of a sudden it was over. And I didn't want to leave. And I was sitting there, and the usher was, you got to go. And I was like, man, can I just watch this one more time? He goes, like, as long as somebody says something to me, I don't care. So I sat there and watched that whole movie again and was just in love with it. And I had saw E.T. too. And I loved that movie for a total different reason. But that wasn't really my kind of thing as a kid. John Carpenter, that movie was my kind of adventure. We used to play this game. What movie would you step into? Mine was not Alien, because I didn't want to know. They didn't have any weapons. You're going to die in that damn movie. I wanted to be one of the Marines, and Aliens.
Yeah.
That was my kind of story. But it had everything that I fell in love with Lovecraft for. It was everything. The music, the special effects were all other characters in the film. And if none of them had worked, it would have all fallen apart. But they all just fell in line. And it was just, to me, one of the perfect, I don't want to call it a horror movie, because I grew up reading Agatha Christie and all those other detective novels, a big Sherlock Holmes fan. And that's where I learned to see if I could try to figure out who was doing what. And I always carried that on with me. I loved mystery novels, but it was straight up 10 Little Indians, trying to figure out who's the killer before the killer gets to you. It just, to me, that was it. And then I'd have to say In the Mouth of Madness, because that also captured that Lovecraftian feel. But then when I hear people go, oh, yeah, Carpenter, everything he did was Lovecraft. And I said, no, it's not. He understood whatever the genre was that he was going to do, and he knew how to manipulate the audience.
Yep.
No, I think the only one that I never really liked was Body Bags.
Yeah, that one's it's still it's decent, but it's Jose.
I think I have to say They Live. That was one of the movies I watched when I was a kid. I'm trying to remember that one.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think this one, because it's like, you never know who we get. We get those little special glasses to see who they really are. And reptile people, man. I'm telling you, they exist. We never know. But I mean, the things about that movie, if I can remember, that he had these special glasses to look at these things. And I kind of think about it now. I was like, okay, now I remember some of the movies here that he has actually.
How can you forget the actress's eyes, man?
Yeah.
Evil Lynn.
Evil Lynn, yeah. There was a lot of good movies he has made, but I think They Live was one of them that really made me think. Is like, what if they actually, there's aliens out there, or these reptile people there that we can't see who they are because our physical eyes. And makes me think about what's that? It's a new show from Amazon. I think it's called Injustice, or it's like this it's like a new Superman. I can't remember.
Oh, you're talking
Invincible.
Invincible. There you go. Yeah. So that one, it shows where the government takes the young son into this area and says, turn on the lights. So he turns on lights, and then he can see everything around him. And then all right, you can turn them back on. He turns them on, so he can't only see just a white room. What if there's something like that's blinding our eye? You never know. Like I said, trick, smoke and mirrors. You don't know if something like that really exists.
Do you remember when that movie first came out? Was when we started finding out that movies were using subliminal messages in their movies.
Yeah.
Like every other frame had, like, I forget which movie had every other so many frames was like a dead dog, maggots, and everything, but they flashed so quickly before your eyes, you didn't register it, but your brain did. So you kept just getting uncomfortable with what you were seeing, and you couldn't quite do it. And Marilyn Manson did the same thing with his music. He played tones that affect you psychologically within his music, and he mixes it, and you get these just heebie-jeebie feelings with some of his
Yeah.
songs, and he
Yeah.
did it on purpose. He broke it down. He said, "This is what I do and how I do it,"
Yeah.
and it made me realize just how easily we could be manipulated without ever knowing.
That's true. Yeah.
So to wrap this up, because I know Adrian's got to go. It's a little late for him.
Sorry, buddy.
So maybe we'll work towards trying to figure out if we can do an earlier time when we record, because as we get some of these conversations, they may go a little bit more in depth. But for me, it's two things. One was my favorite movie of his is going to be The Thing as well. The reasons for me for The Thing is different than everybody else, because it's like I have this thing of like my greatest fear. One of my greatest fear is the whole no-win situation, like the end of the world. Regardless, it doesn't matter if it's like religion-based or what aliens coming or whatever. That fear of like it.
You don't like your own Kobayashi Maru?
Yeah, exactly. I want to be
Final days.
I want to be in control of my own destiny. I want to look at that evil cloud, bring in apocalypse, and go, I'm going to take you out. Like, old man shaking at a cloud here with Adrian.
The reckoning.
But the one thing that I love about John Carpenter's films, and it's really present with The Thing, and actually technically his movies after The Thing as well, they don't feel dated. You feel like you're there in the moment of when they were done. Like you were there at that camp in 82 when everything went down.
Yeah. See that.
The practical effects were amazing in that movie. And I love the whole breakdown of you have a group of people that are stir crazy, but they've been working together and pulling through. They're friends. They have their own idiosyncrasies. They're dealing with what they deal with, and it's just like their routine, And then how those friendships and that what they are just breaks down, and how they turn on each other. It's a really good character study of how humans ourselves would do the same thing in a matter of turmoil or fear for our life situation.
Twilight Zone did it when monsters come to Maple Street.
So the last thing, the movie that impacted me the most, and it was the movie that made me want to pursue film. And I may still do it. I have a lot of stories that I've written and I have in my head that I need to write that I'd love to make as a film. Mm-hmm. And hopefully this will be a window for me to be able to do that. It's just continuing to do this stuff, but who knows? Is Big Trouble in China. I remember one summer, and it was the summer before we moved from Deer Park to Pasadena. So this is my 6th grade year. And it was that summer before we moved, because we didn't move like right away. We were like, we got the ability to move into this house pretty close to Miller, which is the elementary school I went to. I mean, middle school, intermediate. And
Wasn't it Strawberry?
Yeah, off of Strawberry. Well, I was late going to school. I mean, like literally, like we moved, and then like I started school like a couple of days later because we were in transition of moving. But I watched my dad had like just tons of VHS tapes of movies that he recorded from like different sources, because back then you couldn't like buy VHS, or you could, but they were super expensive. And so I was looking for something to watch, and I saw Big Trouble in Little China. I was like, this looks fun. And I put it in. It blew my mind, because I was a fan of Mortal Kombat, because when I saw it, I didn't associate it with that. It wasn't the first time I saw it. I remember probably watching it with my dad when I was younger, but it wasn't one of those things that it was that moment in time where like everything just aligned to like really open my eyes to cinema and film and production and the behind the scenes of everything. And it was like, man, I want to do this. And I made a joke about like, I want to be a truck driver like my grandpa because of this. Hopefully I'll get roped into like some adventure, because when you're younger, for me, I got to the point where I saw like, you know, okay, I get what my life is. I'm a cog. I have to either just, I'm going to play out my events and, you know, I'm going to do a desk job and I'll have a family, blah, blah, blah. But this is the movie that like broke that mold of what I could do, what I could become if I decided to pursue it. And
It's all in the reflexes.
yeah, I mean, it was like, I was already quoting movies, but this movie just started my like, anytime I could, because I'd just be quoting lines from the movie. And then after that, it was like every other movie I watched, I was like quoting this. So it became a joke with my friends because I would make these references to movies that some of them may have never seen. And I was like, okay, come back to my house. We're going to watch this movie. You need to be indoctrinated. You can't be blind to what's out there and how amazing these things are.
Which is where he would come into the house and go, "Dad, fix these people."
Yeah. They have not seen the way. Have you seen our Lord and Savior, John Carpenter, and his great body of work? But that movie, I mean, just every moment of it, the comedy was on point. The set design, the fact that like Jack Burton was this character that was like this, he's not even really the hero of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, everything that happens to him, he's like, it just happens to work in his favor. It's like he's playing a character and he's rolling a 69 every time. Reference to our role-playing episodes, you should check it out. Because anytime you roll a 69 when we role play Marvel, it was the best thing that could ever happen. So it's like, you know, at the end when Jack, like, you know, he throws the knife at David Lopan and he's like, "Nice knife, time to die," and Jack grabs it and throws it in his head. Perfect.
Well, he doesn't really some guy throws it underhand to him off screen. He just
Off screen, because
yeah.
it's not even coming at him blade wise.
He just goes through an underhand toss. And we didn't even grab it. He just let it fall in his hand, underhand toss it. That's my favorite part because it's so obvious. Somebody just, "Here you go."
And you know, it's just like his friend, you know, Wang is like, he's the hero. He's the one that like just does everything. You know, he takes out Rain and then goes in to fight you know, Thunder and everything, and then
he's the Liu Kang. He's
the Liu Kang. And that movie is the
Jack actually takes out Wind.
Well,
or what was his name? Thunder, which was the one.
Lopan. He takes out Lopan.
Because he takes out Lopan, the other one gets so angry he blows up.
Yeah, he blows up.
He gets so angry he blows up. Yeah.
Thunder's the one that blows up, and then
blows up. Yeah.
Lightning is you know, the one that Egg goes, "Here, hold this," just drops a base on his head.
Oh, this gargoyle. Hold on to that for me, buddy.
But
then you had to love D&D to catch the Beholder. Where the Beholder came from, that was watching them, you know, so many references that weren't out there in the lexicon at the time, and Carpenter just would know enough to throw little bits and pieces out there, which we would call Easter eggs now, you know. But
to wrap this up, John Carpenter had a big influence on all of our lives, mostly. I mean, even if you don't know who he is in his films, you'll know lines from They Live. You know, "I've come here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum." That, you know, oh yeah, that's a great line, right? You may say, "Oh, that's from Duke Nukem." No, that came from They Live. So if you haven't watched any of his movies, I implore you to, I beg you, please watch his stuff. You know, this is one of those directors that he puts a lot of quality and hard work into the films he makes. You know, there's some movies he does that are hit and miss, you know, like friggin' but they all have their place. You know, you would think like Ghost of Mars, that's really just a remake of Assault on Precinct 13 in space. Same thing with, you know, Escape from LA is a comedy sequel to Escape from New York. And it's still a great movie. It has a lot of great actors and some great scenes. And it's just like more Kurt Russell chewing on the scenery, and with Bruce Campbell, Steve Buscemi, I mean, Pam Grier, the list goes on of people that are in that movie.
What always amazed me was he seemed to remember how I was really into Philadelphia Experiment, Project
Yeah.
Rainbow, and all that, and I was just researching all that stuff. And then, whoop, he makes a movie about Philadelphia
Oh, he had,
Experiment.
he helped with it. He didn't
And
direct it, but
he
yeah.
didn't direct it, but yeah.
Yeah.
And so it still has him in the. It's still considered a John Carpenter movie because of his. He had so much influence in it. And I was like, is he reading my mind? Because I had been in love with the Philadelphia Experiment when I first heard about the Eldridge as a kid. And then DC did, I don't know if you ever heard of Warlord, did this really offshoot comic where they ended up on the Eldridge. And I was like, I know what that ship is. I know what that is. I know what that is. And people were like, it's a comic, dude. Just leave us alone.
I'm down, kid.
The Eldridge. And to have something like that reach in and grab something that I really loved and like to think about and read up on, all of a sudden it's in a comic. And then Carpenter makes he helps produce a movie about it. And I was like, yeah, I think he's tapping into my brain. I think, he comes in at night and sucks my imagination out.
There's
I don't know what the hell it was, but there was a lot of stuff I discussed about with my kids and friends, and all of a sudden he's making a movie about it. So,
but just check him out. There's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of directors that need more love for film, and we kind of get wrapped up in the things that are going on in our lives, but sometimes we need an escape. And sometimes the best escape is watching Jack Burton drive the Pork Chop Express and give me life advices.
mhm.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode. Tell us what your favorite, or actually, you know what? I'll do this. Tell us what movie you would like to go into. And I want to thank Adrian, Jose, David, and my dad to come on the podcast. And
Yeah, I came back to life just to be here. I want you to know that.
Appreciate it.
We hope you guys enjoy, and let us know. And if you have a topic idea, please put it down below in the comments so we can discuss about it. We're well versed in the different things.
Am I technically a zombie now?
Yes.
You're a miracle, sir.
You're
You're a miracle.
Yeah,
You are.
11 minutes. Dad.
I got
11 minutes. You're a miracle.
I vote zombie. I vote zombie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you have a craving for flesh?
No.
I don't know.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Takes time. Takes time.
I do like pork.
It's an acquired
It's
taste.
close.
I mean, come on.
Close enough.
It took the
Quiet
guys
taste.
in what is it? Return of the Living Dead a while to turn into zombies and start craving
Yeah.
brains.
Brains.
Hmm.
I have smooth brain. I don't handle.
That's it.
All right, everyone. Until next time.